Bonjour, welcome to the show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope you're having a great Friday afternoon as we take you home into the weekend. And we do so with the not-so-breaking news that Sam Howell is QB1 for the Commanders. That, of course, the main topic on the show today. We'll discuss all aspects of it, including with Clinton Yates at 4:30. We'll break into a little bit of the defensive film breakdown from the joint practices with Logan Paulson at 5. So plenty of good stuff coming up on the show. However, this morning, Ron Rivera stepped to the podium and did the thing that we all knew he was going to do. It was just a matter of time, and this is how it sounded. Yes? No? Maybe, Anthony? Do we have that clip?
Yes, we do have that clip.
Okay. And this is how it sounded.
I talked with Eric Bieniemy and Tavita yesterday, and after our first preseason game, after both those joint practices, I'm going to name Sam our starter this year going forward. He's basically met the challenge that we talked about, and that was seeing the growth and improvement from OTAs and minicamp, and then talked about going into training camp and continue to grow and show us what he's capable of, and we've been very pleased with it, to the point where I decided yesterday that we were going to name him the starter going into the regular season.
This is the timeline it's been on all along, and I know there was a lot of consternation about him not doing it on Wednesday when I asked him, and on some level, on a human level, I feel responsible and guilty and apologize for all of the ridiculous narrative talk of the last couple of days where people actually thought this was a big deal, because it never was. This is just good process, good leadership. Just because everyone understands something is going to happen doesn't mean that we on the outside are entitled to know before the people on the inside. And because the chronology of, hey, joint practices are over, we all know in the back of our heads, hey, joint practices. After that, they're probably going to name a starter as long as one is clearly there, which either meant Sam fell on his face and it's clearly Jacoby, or he didn't and it's clearly Sam. Well, the first thing that happens literally after practice, and Ron addresses his team, which, on the field addresses his team, not meetings, not whatever, is he comes and talks to us. And because I asked him the question, hey, is Sam, are you ready to name him QB1? Are you ready to name a starter? And he hasn't had the chance to talk to Sam and Jacoby. He hasn't had a chance to talk to Eric Bieniemy and Tavita Pritchard. Doesn't mean he owed us an answer. It would have been cool. I would have felt really smart because he was talking like someone who was ready to name Sam the quarterback. And again, there's a difference between knowing and saying it out loud. And I just think some of the complaining about him not saying it is just a fundamental misunderstanding. And also, if we're honest, is not how people, if they were in those situations, would want it to be handled. If you were, whether it's Sam, Jacoby, Bieniemy, or Pritchard, and the way you found out that there was an official QB1 proclamation was through the press, you'd probably not be super psyched. I mean, you'd be most psyched if you're Sam, but that's just not how you do things. And so this complaining about Ron not being willing to say it is very silly. Actions speak louder than words. We're allowed to be adults. We're allowed to be smart, and he handled it the right way. So that is what it is. As for the more important substance of Sam Howell being the starting quarterback, this was kind of the only move for this franchise coming out of last season. Unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how it ultimately winds up going, there weren't a lot of other options at quarterback for them. They were at a place in the draft where getting one in a draft year where getting one wasn't super feasible. The free agency options were not there. The trade options were not there. I know we spent so much time talking about Lamar, and after watching him a couple days in joint practices, you're sitting there going, damn, I wish there was a way, but there never was. My point was never with Lamar that it wasn't worth trying to get him. It's that there was no way to get him, and that it was a waste of time. And so, realistically, this has always been the best option for this team. you finally make a decision to go with a young guy. And if it works, it works. And you have your guy. And if not, the cupboard is barren. You must start over and you quit playing these games and you must invest high, do whatever it takes to get a guy kind of deal, which is much better, it seems, in this draft where there are expected to be multiple first-round QBs, maybe even 2 or 3 that in another year might go 1 overall, that this is the way forward for this team. Sam's exciting. I think on a surface level of just looking at who he is, he's not a typical late-round pick. And, the 5th round thing where you projected in the 1st round the year before, all that, like the draft status is what it is. The draft status comes from a combination of a junior year that was not as good as his sophomore year after he lost a lot of talent and he had to change his game. And the reality that when teams took a closer look, they weren't as interested as they were kind of peering in from farther away. But also that he plays a position that is in many ways a binary choice for teams in the draft. It is a bit of an exception to best player on the board. If you've got 2 quarterbacks, or you've got a quarterback that you imagine being entrenched for you for a long time, you're not going to invest a top 3 round draft pick in another guy. So while other teams might have had 2nd and 3rd round grades on Sam, much like the Commanders did, I can't remember which one they had, but it wasn't a 5th rounder. They were like, no, we have our quarterback room set. We need other things. Quarterback is not on our board. So they passed. And because of just where the league was in that particular year, he got passed over way more than he probably should have based off his talent. But I think what we've seen throughout this training camp is he's got a lot like 1st round level natural talent from an arm ability. He's got very, very good mobility, plus mobility. He's got plus creativity. And I think the most important thing, the reason I believe that Sam Howell is going to be a pretty good NFL football player, if not, I don't necessarily think he's going to be a great one. But the reason I give him to be able to succeed, the thing that makes me believe is that up here, mentally, he is pretty damn solid. And it's not about his knowledge of the playbook, although that seems to be fine. He seems to be a quick learner. Like he can handle all of that, the rigors of being a signal caller in the league. It's that he does not seem to be a guy who is easily flustered. He just keeps playing. And quarterback is such a mental position. It is such a highly, processing position. It is such a communications position. There's so much besides the ability to throw a ball hard and accurately, which, is obviously a part of it, but there's so much that goes into the ability to do that. And the ability to do that part and the mental processing side well is tremendously helped when your nervous system is not on overload. And that's a fancier way of saying when you're not too hype, when you're not too overwhelmed by the moment, when you just can stay calm, have a clear mind, and do all the thinking stuff without really thinking, having it be second nature, having it be quick. And as he has gotten more comfortable in this offense, you have seen that. Now, are there going to be times this year where he gets flustered, or he's not flustered, but he just doesn't know what to do because he doesn't have the experience to bank on? Yes. That is going to be the up and downs of the year with Sam Howell, even if he has a good year. And I will warn you now as fans, be ready for that. There are going to be weeks where he looks bad. That's part of being a young player. But the question is, let's say for the Giants, who are going to throw blitzes at him that he has never seen before, that he does not have answers to, or he does, but he doesn't know where they are in a given play. The question is, when they play them the second time, does he do better? Does he see the thing the second time around and go, oh, I know what to do now, and do it? That's the test for Sam Howell this year, which leads to a whole list of other questions about his future, about where he can get this team, and how it ties in with Ron Rivera, Eric Bieniemy, and the staff in year 1 of Josh Harris. We'll dive into those questions and try our best to answer them ahead of time Next, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app on this here Friday, August 18th. One of the last training camp days of the season. Obviously, preseason game number 2 coming up on Monday against Baltimore, and a couple more practices next week, and then the game against Cincinnati at FedEx Field before the team breaks training camp and gets into regular season style practices the following week. Your last chance to go to training camp tomorrow if you would like to go out. I imagine there's probably going to be another like 10,000 people out in Ashburn, considering it's the last chance see the team outside of the preseason game. And then, we were talking about this. Linnell popped in studio yesterday, Anthony, as Haney's back. Linnell popped in studio, and we were talking about whether or not we thought this would be an event on Monday, the game, because it's a preseason game. By the way, our show till 7:30 leading up to kickoff on Monday. I believe that's the kickoff time, and I believe we're till 7:30 again. So we will take you up to kickoff on Monday as you either go to the game or drive home to watch it. But again, also remember the YouTube live stream is really convenient for anyone who has a smart TV, which is like almost everyone at this point. So if you don't want to watch like the pregame show and they're talking about whatever else that is not the Commanders game coming up, they're talking about other games, whatever, or you just like us, flip us on YouTube, on the YouTube app on your smart TV, and we'll be your TV pregame show. And then if you want to watch the game, flip over and watch the game on your, Fubo TV, YouTube TV, whatever it is, Hulu, that you use instead of cable, or change your input and go to your cable box. Anyway, point is, Anthony, obviously you can't go to the game because you got to work, you got to produce the show. But like, if you were just fan Anthony, would you be going to the game on Monday as the first game of the Josh Harris era?
Sadly, I would not.
No, can't. It's a preseason game. Can't do it.
Preseason, and also we just had joint practices, so I don't expect to see much of the starters.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the rest of the team, but
it being game one of the Josh Harris era doesn't do anything for you.
Not really. Just because, again, it is the preseason. Week one, ask me this question, I'll be there. But preseason, game one, I don't think there is enough enthusiasm and excitement for me to go out there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
But it would probably be a good opportunity, get my dad, my granddad outside. I think they'd be open to it, especially my granddad. He loves any and everything.
So get him to the game. Although,
I can't go though. So
yeah. Oh darn, I can't get on the Beltway on a Monday to go to FedEx Field. I know I'm going to go for the opener. That's the one thing. Yeah. Even though I got pregame, like I'm going to go after. But yeah, we're here entertaining you on Monday. So that is obviously a topic that we'll have on Monday. So we'll get fan reaction on the phones on the Ace Law listener line on Monday. But continuing to talk about Sam Howell being named the starting quarterback for the Commanders. And Anthony, I think it leads to a couple of burning questions kind of for this team, which of course starts with like, okay, you're the starter moving forward, but like, what does that actually mean? How long is the leash for Sam Howell? I happen to think that it's going to be pretty long, and there is only a few set scenarios where you pull the plug. And really, there's one set scenario. And when you want to draw the line of demarcation is fine. If you want to say it's, kind of week 6 before you get into some division games, you're coming off a couple of what should be easier opponents, Bears and Falcons, or pick another place in the schedule. But to me, unless you are winning in spite of Sam Howell and you think it's not sustainable, and you think a move to Jacoby Brissett will make your job easier, and you are steamrolling towards the playoffs, and you think you can legitimately make a playoff run because your defense is playing so well, I think Sam Howell should be the starter for the entire season. Because either you're losing, and at that point, like, what's the point in trying to recover the season? You're just killing your draft stock. You just, hey, we're going to eat it. We're going to see if this kid can turn it around and maybe salvage something for the future for like next year or be in a project, competition, whatever, trade value, I don't know. Or you're winning and he's playing great and there's no reason to bench him. But if you're kind of in that weird middle ground where you could use an upgrade at quarterback, but your defense is so damn good that you're winning anyway, that's kind of, to me, the only scenario in where he even has a leash on and you need to pull him back.
I like that. I'm in total agreement with you. I think we definitely should be riding Howell. But what if we're in a situation where the defense is playing okay, they're middle of the pack, offensive line isn't holding up, which is affecting Sam's, time in the pocket, his production out of the pocket, things of that nature. Do we still really want to fall to Jacoby? Will we still be better off, riding Sam, seeing what we can possibly get out of Sam? And guess what? If it doesn't result in wins, so be it. Because guess what? There's a guy in Caleb Williams still waiting in the win for, next year's draft.
I mean, the thing is about Caleb Williams, though, like, you have to be so bad.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, honestly, you kind of have to start the season losing to the Cardinals. and then, like, later in the season, maybe you're on it. Because the Cardinals the Cardinals should be terrible.
They're not favored to win one game this season.
Right. And then, you want to know who else is probably not going to be that good? The Texans. And you want to know who has their pick? The Cardinals. The Cardinals could legitimately pick 1-2 in next year's draft as a price for Houston picking 2-3 in this past draft.
Yep.
Like, that is a realistic thing. I mean, D'Amico might get him going, and who knows if Stroud's good or, what other guys, if their defense holds up and, wins them 4 or 5 games, and all of a sudden they're looking a little bit later in the top 10. But, like, it has to be a situation where it is worth it to go to a different quarterback, and a different quarterback would actually be an upgrade. If your starter's not playing, or if your defense is not playing well, and Sam is doing a good job, like, you keep going with Sam. That's the thing. You have to get to a point where you realize, like, this is a long-term play, but if you realize somewhere in the shorter term that it is not going to work out in the long term, that maybe the reasons that other teams passed on Sam Howell are too much to overcome. He's got accuracy issues. He's got consistency issues. He starts throwing a bunch of picks. He's careless with the football. Whatever version of that winds up being the bugaboo, the Achilles heel, then okay. Because I do want to make this point. There are some people that will tell you, no matter what, under any circumstances, it is not worth it to go to Jacoby Brissett this year. And to those people, I would tell you, do not ever throw away an NFL season. They are far too precious. It is way too hard to be good. If Jacoby Brissett could get you a deep playoff run, because this defense is suddenly, all-time kind of good. They're the number 1 defense in football. This D-line is cooking. Chase Young, looks like a superhero. You're starting to do the math and figuring out how you can sign both Young and Sweat, because you think if you do, you're going to be competitive for the next half decade. You're doing all that in your head. And Sam Howell is killing you because he's throwing interceptions and he can't operate the offense or whatever is happening. They should go to Brissett. Outside of that, which, by the way, I certainly do not predict happening. Not that I don't think the defense couldn't be really good, but I don't think Sam's gonna be that bad.
Yeah.
Outside of those circumstances, I don't know why you would go to Brissett as long as Sam is healthy. Yeah. That's where I sit on that. And I think then the question becomes, what does that mean for Rivera? Is Ron all of a sudden safe if they finish 8-9, but Sam gets better as the year goes. The defense shows that continuity is good. They finish in the top 10 defensively. And all of a sudden you're looking at next year with a second year of Howell, and, maybe that's just enough that Bieniemy doesn't get a head coaching job, that you're like, okay, second year in this system, year 5 of Rivera, now we're going to cook. They finish the way the Lions did last year, something like that. That to me becomes very, very interesting in terms of the long-term prospects of Rivera in Washington. I don't think there's any clear-cut answer. Josh Harris doesn't have a track record in the NFL. And Josh Harris has also shown, hey, Doc Rivers, you win 50-plus games and you don't make the NBA Finals, but you win a couple playoff rounds. Sorry, that's not good enough. He'll set a standard, and if he doesn't think they're headed in the right direction or that you're capable of getting them to the next step, he'll pull the plug. By the same token, if he thinks you are, he'll stick with the coach. So it's I kind of hate that we're already looking at what ifs, the day that it happens. But look, I mean, team history here is not good. This is the 7th straight year with a different week 1 starter, which we knew because, Carson Wentz is not on the roster, nor was he coming back under any circumstances. But the last guy to repeat was Cousins. Can Howell be the next? I think that's the biggest question. That'd be a fun question for Monday, maybe. Do you think Sam Howell is the week 1 starter next year? Talk about some sports radio speculation. But what does all this mean for Rivera? What does it mean for Howell? Clinton Yates has some thoughts. He'll join us next on the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
You can take the Team 980 with you anytime.
The Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And joining us now for his Friday visit, my buddy, my pal, DC's own Mr. Clinton Yates. How are you, sir?
I'm well, sir. I'm in San Francisco, California. For your Star Wars head fans, I was at the Ahsoka premiere last night at the Lucasfilm campus at the Presidio. Pretty cool. They got a statue of Yoda in the middle of a fountain right there in the front. It's awesome.
And who doesn't need that in their town? I think every town should have one.
It brought me peace, and I would agree with
that. So meanwhile, here in the district, here in your hometown, story of the day, Ron Rivera named Sam Howell the starting quarterback this morning. This has been a long time coming. There's been much hullabaloo this week about the timing of it all, but it all makes sense. They get through the joint practices. But, I mean, new era, like, it is a little interesting, Clinton, I think, that you have, like, new owner, key season for Rivera, and they are going with this guy that was a fifth-round pick last year, and I think it's caused a lot of national confusion. What's your take on it as the Commanders officially head into the season with Howell as QB1?
It's setting the bar awfully low, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a way that this kind of feels like Ron is saying, you know what, I'm not going to keep my job based on wins and losses. I'm going to keep my job based on whether or not people like me. And by people, I mean the new people and not the old people. Because if you're going into what's supposed to be somewhat of a make or break year for you as a veteran coach in the NFL, and you're picking a guy to lead your team that, you know, basically is a reach, you know what I mean, in terms of being able to make a playoff run, yeah, I mean, you're just sort of deciding development is more important than winning right now. So I don't hate the decision. I mean, I do think it keeps kind of the buzzards off your back in terms of, well, if this doesn't work out, then you're screwed. If it doesn't work out, then you go to Brissett, and then hopefully you have a better chance, and maybe some of the rest of your team is gelled. But it is a very interesting indication from Ron to say, I'm going with the kid. Why not? Because that automatically means in this NFL that you're probably not going to be as successful as if you have a better.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because in some ways it's selfless. Like, in some ways, this is the right move for the franchise, and I just don't know how many coaches would actually do this.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it. I mean, that's sort of what I meant, is that Ron is basically saying the football product I'm going to try to make as good as possible for whatever the expectations are. The Ron Rivera product is going to have to be a separate matter, which I actually think, if I'm in the business of protecting Ron in terms of his interests, I actually think it's probably the right move. There's no world in which people like Ron the guy if the football team isn't developing. And if you don't believe that at the highest ceiling of what Jacoby Brissett is, you're going to have yourself a 10-win season or a 12-win season, well, then you might as well just say, let's get the team together while Ron, develop my relationship with the new ownership, with the new people that are looking to go forward. It's not the worst strategy. It is selfless, but there is also a level of self-protection in it, and he thinks he can rely on his personality to get through it.
Yeah, no, well, it's also, you go back to the offseason and how much do we talk about the idea of trading for Lamar or like taking other big swings. And,
right.
I think we could certainly go back over the course of the 4 years and look at different off ramps and be like, well, that's where you could have gotten your quarterback, or that's where you should have done that. But I do kind of think they entered this offseason, Clinton, and they were like, we got nothing. There's no good option out there. Like, the best one we
right.
can try for is Lamar, and that's just not going to happen because, the Ravens will match anything, yada, yada, yada. And so you play this card because it's the only one you can. And
right.
that's what I don't know. And I guess the thing is that going to trick Josh Harris?
No, but I do think that there's something to be said for, and this is something we don't see a lot in the NFL for, which is you don't actually have to fire your coach. You don't have to be on the strict regimen of, if it doesn't happen in 5 years, then you're gone. You don't have to constantly be looking at markers like quarterbacks and, let's just say, playoff wins in order to decide your team is making progress. And in the specific case of the Commanders, in fact, all of those other escalator things that would make sense for other franchises do not, in fact, make sense here. Perhaps the best development of this franchise as a larger, healthier product, as in between fan base, front office, on-field product, and perception in the league, is stop firing people. How about you get some continuity? You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's expecting this team to be good anyway. They haven't been good for 30 years. Just make sure that everybody likes each other and that you're growing your seeds the way you're supposed to on your farm, as opposed to just worrying about what flowers you're going to sell. I don't hate it from everybody involved. Not everybody has to be on edge and on pins and needles in order for people to have success in the NFL.
Are you saying that because you heard my rant yesterday about fans who are just angry and want to fire anyone all the time, or was that just a genuine
No.
take that happened to be compatible?
The force is strong on that one, and in general, you know how I stand on fire everybody all the time. It doesn't have to happen, you know what I'm saying? And it doesn't mean anybody gets better either.
Remind me to send you the rant. I unloaded like I don't do very often. I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay.
Clinton Yates
All
with
right.
us here on the Hoffman Show, of course, commentator at ESPN. Watch him on Around the Horn. Read his work online, ESPN.com and Anscape. So NBA announced their full schedule yesterday. Wizards get one national television game, at least to start. It is Jordan Poole's return to Golden State. Then you got some NBA TV games like Bradley Beal's return to the District. But I know you're more interested, as opposed to going through the schedule and this, that. Are we excited about this game? You have thoughts on the NBA Cup, which I am pro NBA Cup. Are you pro NBA Cup?
I don't know if I'm pro NBA Cup because I don't know that I understand the NBA Cup. And not because I am some rube who is so mystified by schedule changes in midseason tournaments, but from a basic competitive balance standpoint. These games count towards the regular season, correct?
Correct.
They're regular games. All of the incentive for them is simply money, and that's it.
Correct.
Why are you playing the tournament if the other teams are only other NBA teams? I genuinely do not understand the competitive purpose of this if it, A, isn't going to include other squads from other places, or B, isn't going to help a team like, let's just say you win it, you get a free play into the play-in, if you will, if you're one of these younger teams, or rather, fringe teams. Like, I just don't get the point. is what it comes down to. It's not like in the WNBA where, frankly, the extra cash from winning the tournament because of the way that things are set up helps players in ways that they could not otherwise get outside of the schedule. I don't get it, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that it's bad, but it's got a lame name and it doesn't seem to have any real purpose other than playing a couple of games in Vegas, which you could do anyway. I just don't understand what the point is. And it seems to be odd from a schedule-making standpoint that it exists at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was interesting hearing some of the behind-the-scenes interviews or some of the interviews with folks who worked on this behind the scenes and how many things they considered, why they said certain things could or couldn't work. And I think this thing is a start with room to expand. From what I took away from a lot of those, Zach Lowe, obviously, who's deep in the weeds of anything NBA related. He did an interview with the guy who kind of was the chief of the tournament, if you will. And they definitely considered, I think, a lot of other options. But you get down to the logistics, and I just think these things are hard. You're not on a European continent where there's 5 leagues that are, the same flight away from, Memphis to Utah.
Right.
I guess it's just hey, can we get some more attention? And ultimately, aren't we all sports-wise in the attention business?
Yeah, but I don't think that in the NBA, if we're being honest, the biggest piece of impact they have is not actually games being played, which sounds counterproductive. Well, not counterproductive, but counterintuitive. But NBA fans writ large these days like things that almost have nothing to do with actual gameplay. They've got to do with interaction between players. They got to do with off-court nonsense in terms of what people are talking about. And I'm not knocking any of this. This is just how the taste of the younger NBA fan has evolved. I don't know that mixing up, game schedules outside of drastically reducing them to the point that it's going to affect each, the importance of each game, or wildly incentivizing things from a money standpoint that is much bigger than this, is really going to move the needle. Hey, what am I going to do? Go buy an NBA Cup t-shirt at, in Las Vegas? Okay. But if it doesn't really change anything and the games still count towards the regular season, you're kind of throwing off the imbalance for the purposes of what? It's not that it's bad. I just don't understand why it's happening. You've been playing games in your backyard for the entirety of your existence. You're just going to play them in the front yard now and say, hey, you want to come look? That's just kind of what it feels like in terms of what the relative change is between one to the other. I don't really understand.
Yeah, I guess the thing is that why I'm pro this is it's not disruptive. And,
right.
There is a way, because I think that was my thing initially. I didn't really understand what it meant by in season. I thought they were going to have extra games in the season. I'm yeah, y'all need to reduce the number of games, not add to them. This is a problem. But then it's oh no, it's actually regular season games. And they made it fairly easy to understand where it's every Friday is NBA Cup night. Your team's going to be playing on these days in November. And you're going, because of the ease of it and making it easy to understand, I think it's a thing that people will kind of tune into and be I don't know, let me check it out. And then it just becomes a competition. And at the end of the day, if you add some kind of competition element to something and there's more urgency to it because it's oh, these games matter more for something that is sooner. Again, I don't think this is going to be revolutionary in any way. I think we're still steps away from being revolutionary, but I think they were able to accomplish something that is so not disruptive to the schedule and so easy to understand and follow once you get into it, that there will be a little bit more juice, which in the middle of November for the NBA, which is typically ignored till at least Christmas, I don't know functionally how much better they could have done at this point in time.
Let's just say it this way. This current product is mayonnaise. Alert me when it gets to Miracle Whip because that tastes better.
All right. Well,
by the way, do you want to know a good story, Craig? Let me tell you a quick story. Speaking of NBA speculation and random.
I thought you were going to go down a mayonnaise track, and I was
No,
okay.
I was not. So I happened to be at let's just say a relatively upscale bar in Beverly Hills. I do not normally do this. I do not hang out in these kind of places, but I was with a ball player and his agent, and this is where they wanted to go to dinner because we're friends. And I'm in this joint, and we're at dinner. It's maybe 10:30 at night, probably 11 o'clock. And I'm thinking to myself, I asked the guy, I say, is this the kind of place where famous people hang out or where people who want to be famous hang out? He says, no. They get some pretty good celebrities in here. And I'm like, okay. So at one point, the guy turns to me, the player turns to me, he goes, yo, look behind you. That's Mario. As in you could let me love you, Mario. He's wearing a big silver chain with an M on it around his neck in case you didn't know who he was. And then I proceed to scan the room and I go, wait a second. That guy kind of looks like a fat Johnny Manziel. Not realizing that's actually what Johnny Manziel looks like these days. It was definitely him. And then Kyle Kuzma walked in, and then Jordan Peele walked in, and then a bunch of other dudes who were rarely recognizable NBA faces who I couldn't name walked in. And then Kevin Durant walked in. And I was like, oh, so I guess it does get celebrity guests very regularly. And now it is officially time for me to go because we are out of my price range on every single level. So that happened 2 days ago in Los Angeles, just in case you wanted to know.
And that BLA sometimes. If you're in the right spot, which, actually isn't like, it's hard to get into from the price range, but like everyone goes to the same places. So if you know where to go, you can do the celebrity thing. By the way, did you watch the Manziel doc?
I have not watched that yet. I'm probably going to commit that to my brain this weekend. I'd like to. Everybody tells me it's really good. It's like a tight 60. It doesn't get too far field. And the thing is, like, I never had a problem with Johnny Manziel. I thought he was a guy that was such an obvious sort of not victim, but result of the system that it kind of made it tough to root for or against him in any sort of real way. You know what I mean? I felt like he was a guy that was just kind of going along to get along and playing as best as he could. So to see him out having a good time with some friends, was actually kind of refreshing. He's not completely down in the dumps wondering what happened to his life or his career.
Yeah, the doc is really good and interesting because the story is not over. Like from a football sense, it is obviously, but like his life story is not over, and it leaves you with that, which I think is actually very powerful. I think a lot of times these documentaries try to like wrap things up, and like if you're making a doc about a 30-year-old, there's nothing to wrap there. So it's good. That Untold series is really good. So I'm actually excited because you know the next one, right? The one that just dropped that I'm watching this weekend because I've already watched the Manziel one.
Which will you be watching?
It's on the Balco Lab. Like as in Bonds, Marion Jones, all of them.
Oh, yes. My buddy watched that, and there are a couple different things in that I'd completely forgotten about, such as that Tim Montgomery went to prison for like 5 years for dealing heroin on the side. There's so many weird details in these things. Like, anyway. Yeah,
I'm excited for that. We can talk documentaries next week. Clinton Yates with us every Friday here on the Hoffman Show. Have a great weekend, my friend, and pay homage to the Yoda statue for us.
May the force be with you, Gregory, as always.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN.
Here's what we need to do right now. I'm tired of hearing about this basketball game. We're scheduling this game.
He challenged me.
You challenged me. Don't say I challenged you.
Either way.
I came.
No. Don't either way.
No,
because you know what you sound like? You sound like you're trying to weasel out of this.
Yeah, he is, Craig. He knows
there's no
what he's
weaseling
doing.
out of the actual playing of the game. I'm not worried about that.
11 a.m. Saturday, right?
All right, 11 a.m. on
11
Saturday.
a.m. Saturday.
God.
There's two.
Six.
And one.
Guard up the nail.
Little recap?
It was somehow worse for Linnell than I thought it was going to be.
Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And if you want more of the show, you miss a piece, we post the best of clips on youtube.com/@Craig Hoffman, which we're just cruising, Anthony, man. Like, we're going to be at 3,200 followers, or subscribers, I should say, by the time the weekend is out, if not by the end of the show today. The 980 page is starting to really kick it into high gear during football season. Pumped about that. So for those of you that have gotten on the YouTube train, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you're welcome. Third of all, tell your friends. Don't be selfish. So be like, hey, check out your boy on YouTube. Things are happening over there. You're going to see Anthony make funny faces all the time. Dude, when you called me on FaceTime earlier to talk about the show, what was that? Speaking of faces you made, good gracious, to quote you.
I don't know what that was.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
It was a surprise. That's what it was.
Surprise to who?
To you, I ain't seen you in 2 days.
No. I was like, surprised to you as well? Anyway. It's 4:45. It's actually 4:51. So if you're trying to get somewhere by 5 o'clock, hurry up. You're late. 4:50, this segment every week, we do our weekend preview. Anthony, still brought to you by...
Nobody.
Yeah. Good weekend of stuff happening. There's like a summer lull that happens where everyone feels like they're on a break. That is over mostly. Like Formula One is back next weekend. They're the last ones. Ironically, the race cars coming in last. But obviously baseball's been going. And as I said in trending, like the Nats are on fire right now. Actually, I probably could figure out how to look it up real quick. By the time I did, the segment will be over. But they've got to be one of like the 5 best teams in baseball in August. Their winning streak really started on July 31st, but like post trade deadline since July 31st, they're 12-4. And they've already surpassed their win total from last season. That was a milestone crossed last night. They're just playing good baseball, and like that's pretty exciting for a young team that's not supposed to be remotely good. They're not good. Like they're still under 500, and the chances that they get to 500 on the season are pretty slim because they dug themselves such a hole early in the season. But like that's what you want in terms of a baseball team that's young and you're looking ahead to the future. Like, do you get better as the season goes? And clearly the answer is yes. And that's, I think, extra encouraging with the Nationals because I think there was a lot of concern that they would be super stagnant. Like they would be kind of stuck in purgatory with ownership potentially changing. Like, what does that mean for Rizzo? What does that mean for Davey? And it's like, well, actually, they reset the franchise with the Juan Soto trade, which, by the way, how's that going for San Diego? And they've got young players playing well now and more on the way. And, well, damn, if that gets you another decade of contention starting maybe as soon as next year, probably 2025, I'd say that's a definition of a good move. But Nats host the Phillies this weekend, 7:05 first pitch tonight at Nats Park. Biggest sporting event of the weekend, no question, the Women's World Cup final, Spain and England. England, one of the best teams in the world over really the last 4 years. I mean, Spain has been up there for a while as well, but the European champions in England coming off knocking out Australia, the co-host country, which was a real bummer. The electricity in that stadium after Sam Kerr scored was insane. But England bounces back. To me, they're the favorite. Now, they're going to have to play probably a little differently than they have because Spain is one of the most annoying teams to play in the world, Anthony. Their men's team is like this as well. They just play a very specific kind of football, very specific kind of soccer where they have the ball the entire time.
Yep.
Now, I am of the camp that possession is overrated.
Really?
Yes.
You play FIFA?
I do play FIFA. FIFA is a little bit different.
Oh, all right. Maybe that's how I like to think then. If I was coaching, this is how I would like to play. I play how I would like to play.
But I don't know. I'm looking to my left because I'm trying to see if the book that I got this idea from is sitting here, and I don't see it. I think it must be in the other room on the bigger bookshelf. The Inner Game of Tennis is on my thing. I reference this book all the time about competition. Anyway, really, no, I have books, kids. I'm smart. I read stuff sometimes. Anyway, the point is, like, what is more valuable than having the ball
is being close to the goal you're trying to score on. Because if you can quickly, like Fox is actually one of the few things they've done well as a broadcaster of this tournament is talk about the recovery time. If you lose the ball, how long does it take to get it back? And you are often better, like if you want to play with the ball in front of your own goal, I'll just wait for you to turn it over, and now I've got the ball in the final third, and I've just got to convert a chance. And those quick changes is often where goals happen. You see a mistake, and the team's not able to recover. So just having the ball doesn't mean anything. It's where do you have the ball? And if you can just, boot the ball close or away from your goal towards the goal you're trying to score on and press, like that's a way to be very, very effective. It's how the U.S. should have played given the players that they had. For some reason, they wanted to play this like possession style and kind of mute their own athleticism. And that's why Vlatko's gone, amongst other reasons. So going to be a really interesting battle because England has played more possession-based, but they move the ball pretty quick, pretty good. They do get Lauren James back, their star winger, off of suspension after she stomped on a player a couple games ago. 2-game suspension there. Probably should have been 3, but they went 2. England makes the final. They'll get her back. And we'll see if they can complete the Euro World Cup double. Should be really fun to watch. 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. 4 a.m., I believe, tomorrow morning is the third place game. If you either, I'm not going to say if you want to wake up to watch it, Australia, Sweden, because let's be honest. I'm not convincing anyone to watch it. There are certainly people listening that are like, I was going to get up to watch that because this is my last chance for World Cup soccer. But if you find yourself up at 4 a.m. because of a child, a dog, your own inability to sleep, and you're like, oh, I can't go back to sleep, go flip on some footy. There you go. And then you got a couple of good ones, NFL preseason, Anthony. Any particular games catch your eye?
For this weekend?
Yeah. I got 2.
What's your 2?
I got Bears-Colts.
Yep.
You got Justin Fields and Anthony Richardson, which signed me up for that for the next decade.
Yeah.
And then you got Broncos and 49ers. And the 49ers thing with Trey Lance is mega interesting. Like, people have takes on Trey Lance.
People have been going crazy on him.
What's your Trey Lance take?
I sort of kind of agree.
With what? There's so many takes. How can you just say I agree?
All right. It's more so I think Trey Lance, it's time for him to pack it up, to be honest. I think Brock Purdy has cemented himself as, their guy moving forward. Trey Lance, what I saw in the opening game or the preseason opener, holding on to the ball too long, inaccuracy late a couple of times. He's still super mobile. Like, he's still got a lot to learn, but it's more so like, what year is this? This year 3 for him? Mm-hmm. He just, like, so far behind. A lot of people keep talking about the reps that he does not have. And, like, going into year 3 and the fact that he's behind, a Sam Darnold, he's behind Brock Purdy, it's concerning a little bit. So I think his best case is probably to be traded out of there and, brought up into a new system, to be honest.
So I don't necessarily agree with that means he needs to be traded, but I think you've correctly identified the problem. This dude hadn't played any football. Like, he didn't play a lot in high school. He barely played in college. Mm-hmm. And then he was a super high draft pick who got hurt and has barely played in the pros. Like, he needs reps. And so, I mean, I don't know how many better learning places there are than the quarterback room that Kyle Shanahan is in, but maybe he could go somewhere else. I just, hate to say it, but I just don't know how much of a future he's got, because at some point people are like, what are we going to do? How do we give him reps? We're not going to give him the time that he needs. Not that he couldn't be good, but if it's going to take 3 years, it's one thing when you draft him 3rd overall and give up a bunch for him to give him 3 years, but when you're now bringing him in on some minimum deal, you don't got time for that. No coach has that kind of security. So unless there's another coach that was like, I know I can turn him into a superstar, just give him to me. And I don't know how many coaches, by the way, are going to think that after it didn't work with Kyle Shanahan.
Yep.
I think it's just a bad luck for Trey Lance, man. I just think he's out of it. And if I'm San Francisco, though, I might just hang on to him, because what's the point in cutting him, right? If you can get something back in return, sure. Yeah. But they, of all teams, have had to play how many quarterbacks the last couple of years?
Yep.
And so if you can keep someone in the building,
3. We talked about this the other day.
Yeah, they're the only team that I can name their 3 quarterbacks that's not the Commanders or the Ravens, because those are teams I've watched practice recently. But yeah, that game is going to be super interesting to see how Lance does, as he does get more reps throughout training camp and more game reps in these preseason games. Can he show improvement? Because if that's the case, then maybe another team does take a flyer on him, and then it could be good to get the fresh restart for his career. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. That's our weekend preview. You can also, of course, listen to us live always on the free Odyssey app, or watch us 4 to 7 each and every day on YouTube at the Team 980. When we get back, little film breakdown, and we'll take a quick sidestep from the Commanders' main story of the day, the naming of Sam Howell as the starting quarterback, and take a look at the other side of the ball that will support him. How did the defense do in the joint practices? Logan Paulson's thoughts next. They tell us we should not really engage in certain parts of the content process. We should definitely post our content. We should tease our content. Hey, tell the people when things are happening on the show. Put that out there on social media. Then make sure you share the content afterwards. But definitely do not engage with the people who comment on it. It's the deepest, darkest underbelly of the internet. No. Do not read the comments. But every single week, 5:30 on a Wednesday, what do we do, Anthony Haney?
We read
Yep.
those comments, baby.
I'm so glad that you gave us a really good one there, because next week we're going to have a fancy new intro for this. We just got the big voice guy, old Jim Cutler, to do some stuff for us. And in my head, the fancy intro includes Anthony going, read those comments, and he just gave me the material I needed to work with. He didn't even know that. You didn't know that, Anthony. Tell the people you didn't know that.
I did not at all.
But next week, you bet your bottom dollar you're going to see it. It's a running bit on the show, but also like an actual thing. I'm trying to learn French. My wife and I are going to Paris next year for the Olympics, so I'm trying to learn French. It's incredibly difficult. I'm very bad at it. Tips for someone learning French. You did the reverse. For people that don't know, you started as a French speaker, and I was reading on Wikipedia, so I don't know if it's true, but also Haitian Creole, first 2 languages, and then had to learn English, which I know is very, very difficult to learn when it's not your native language. French, English, they don't seem compatible. What's your tip for me as I try to learn French?
I would say watch movies in French with English subtitles. That's what I did. I watched a lot of movies in French, but I had the English. No, I watched a lot of movies in English with the French subtitles. So like movies, music, it's kind of something that's like easy, like on the brain. It's not too much information, but you can still enjoy it, and you can see the conversation, because that's the hardest part. Learning like a little word, like to say like, hey, my name is this or whatever, that's easy. But holding a conversation, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, right now I'm really just trying to master, like, I'm American, do you speak English? Because I think in Paris I can get away with that.
Yeah, so je suis américain.
Yeah.
Et je ne parle pas français.
See, even the way you said that is not the way Duolingo says to say that. So I'll just have to come back to my new French tutor, Benjamin Sejus. BSJ, appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Sure.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hour 2 on this here Friday. Coming up at 5:30. We've talked so much about so many players, yet still in our pre-show meeting, Anthony Haney had some questions. He's like, hey, what about this guy? What about that guy? So who are some of the under-the-radar players, and how are their training camps going? We'll discuss at 5:30. Of course, our training camp 6 at 6 coming as well, but 5 o'clock means it is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of some.
You're about to talk.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
For today, the person that was there was me. The person with the tape is Logan Paulson. And so a little Friday take command action for you. A lot of talk about the offense, the offensive line. Obviously, Sam Howell in the news for how he did successfully winning the starting quarterback job after the joint practices. But how did the defense do? And what about those reps where you might have seen some tape of Emmanuel Forbes, quote-unquote, getting cooked? We talked about it all in Take Command, and here is the defensive breakdown from our latest pod. Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. That's Logan Paulson. I'm Craig Hoffman. So let's get into the defense. And the defensive line has become fascinating because somehow, Logan, they are outperforming expectations because there are more dudes that are good. They had too many good players. And the way that they are going about this, I think, is pretty fascinating. James Smith-Williams spent a ton of time inside to allow Andre Jones a little bit more time outside, including on day 2, reps with the ones for the second round pick with Chase Young still out with the stinger. So Jones opposite of Montez Sweat. James playing inside. F.A. was inside, outside quite a bit. And obviously the main 3, Duran, John, and Montez, all did Duran, John, and Montez stuff. This group looks so good right now.
Yeah, and Andre Jones, I think, deserves like a ton of credit, man. He's playing good football right now. Like it's not all. I think the consistency is the thing that gets you going. But like one of the things we talked about when they drafted him is like he physically fits this mold of like an elite edge rusher. He's got 34 and I think a quarter-inch arms, just long arms. He's like 255 pounds. He's kind of like big in the upper body. He's got some different kind of moves, in the one-on-ones. He's got this vicious spin move that he throws in every once in a while. He's still figuring stuff out in terms of like how to be a polished rusher, but he does flash bend. He does flash play strength. He does flash good length. And so I kind of get why they're doing that. And then, James rushing inside has some production off of line stunts. Casey had rushing against Ben Cleveland, who they're trying out to tackle Baltimore. I'm talking about. Who's been a guard. He's this massive guard. He's like 6'6", I want to say he's 360. Casey has some good speed rushes off the edge on him. So it's so funny because when you think, this guy's out of here, he's boned or whatever it is, like dudes start making plays. Like James made some plays, Casey made some plays, Andre made some plays, F.A. made some plays. So the bottom half of that group I don't know what the heck they're going to do because right now, to me, if you're looking at the D-line, you got your 4 dudes, right? Obviously, Chase, Allen, Payne, Sweat. Yeah. That's pretty obvious, right? And then you go Big Phil, Ridgeway, I think.
Well, that's where I think I start to wonder, like, are Ridgeway and Big Phil guys that you just go, that's duplicate skill sets, and we're looking to get more James Smith-Williams on the field and now F.A. Obata on the field, and so we're going to play them inside, and that's, sorry, John, you're gone again.
Yeah, I don't know. It is really interesting, I think, because you don't know. And then it's like F.A. seems to have like been a lock for the roster. Like he seems like he's locked in, right?
He's 100% locked in. And by the way, he was the other main guy getting 1 reps opposite. Like the first time they would line up without Chase, F.A. would be the guy on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. It's just really interesting now because you got, like you said, James is playing inside. He's doing a good job. I don't know. Like I felt like I had a pretty good grasp of that, but over the last like probably 3 practices, it's like, where's this going? I have no idea. But that guy deserves a ton of credit. Did a good job. And
at this point, I feel pretty confident saying Jones is making the team. because not only is he playing well as a rusher, but he's a teams guy. Like, he's got straight line speed that is helpful on punt and kick coverage. And so getting him on the roster and having him active on game day, not only do you get a little bit of extra pass rush juice, but like you get a guy who's very good and helpful on special teams, and he's played teams. He played it in college. So this is where, like, I don't know what they do with KJ Henry, because it's not like he's been bad, but he hasn't been as good as Jones.
And he hasn't showed up the same way. He hasn't been as consistent in terms of making plays, for sure. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, that's something that, those are tough decisions, and a good football player is not going to make this team. So, that's kind of a bummer for whoever that is, because right now a lot of those dudes are playing good football. And these are the days like we're like, man, I'm really glad I'm not the D-line coach or the scout making this decision, because that's a tough sled, man. Because I will say, like, my one question to you would be, like, we know that he's good because we watch him in practice all the time. I'm talking about Andre Jones, but, like, do you think – and he played fine against Cleveland, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this guy's got to make the team. Do you think they could sneak him to practice squad? I don't think they would want to, but I'm saying, like, just because he's not like a big name. He was, a 7th round pick, obviously.
Yeah, I probably, because he was a 7th rounder, but also, like, I don't know that I'd want to, because, like, I think I actually want him on the team.
I agree.
It's not about just like, can we keep him and stash him and he's going to be inactive every week. Like, I want that dude up. Like, he's going to be in uniform for 17 games hopefully this year.
Very different than Kadarius Toney was. Like, you see a path for him to, like, play. Not Kadarius, Shaka Toney.
Right.
Shaka Toney, right. You see like a path for him to play. Like, Shaka was on the roster, but, like,
in the hopes that he would develop in the future.
Right. But I feel like Dre he's there. So there being a relative term. Like, he could play football for you if you needed to.
And Ron, by the way, was asked about it afterwards, and he's like, yeah, he's been surprising it. I don't think Ron would just admit it if they weren't planning on keeping him. Like, you don't say, like, hey, this dude's an NFL football player, then try to sneak him into the practice squad. You say that because you're like, yeah, we're not letting anybody else touch this dude.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, like, is KJ Henry able to get through the practice squad, or is John Ridgeway a guy that you can cut and get to the practice squad, or someone else sign him? But Ridgeway played so well last year in actual NFL games that that's probably going to be hard. And I would try to be keeping Ridgeway just because Big Phil hasn't ever stayed healthy in his 2 years. He's got the calf thing right now and didn't practice these couple of days. So,
and that's where someone gets the phantom, hamstring pull, the 2 days before cut day, and, like, you say, oh, you're on IR now, bud. Sorry. Like,
right.
So we'll see if anything like that, any shenanigans happen like that. But in terms of other young guys that I thought deserve a shout out, and we missed this when we were talking about the offense. So real quick, we'll come back to defense, is Tinsley. I thought, like, he's been a guy that's been getting a lot of buzz, like, from coaches and stuff, but you haven't really seen it in practice. And I felt like he showed up and practiced well. You know what I mean? Had, like, a good practice, running good routes, getting open, creating separation. So, like, as a guy that is competing again for that 6th, 7th receiver spot, I would put his name in the bucket and compare him to, like, Casimir Allen, who, like we talked about, had, like, a very physically impressive day in terms of speed and quickness. Like, just didn't finish plays the same way Tinsley did. So I would just say, like, there's a maturity with Tinsley that I think is something to be valued, I would say.
Yeah, actually, I wanna talk about the Kaz Allen Dax Milne question in take 5. So we'll do that as a little bonus for everybody tomorrow, because we had an interesting conversation amongst a couple of the media folks on the sideline that I think is interesting, and I'm curious your take on. So we'll cover that there in terms of the last receiver spot. But as far as the rest of the defense, I feel like Jamin had a pretty mixed couple of days.
Jamin's first day was I don't want to say not good, but not great, I'll say. Kind of middle of the road. I felt like there was a couple times where it's like he's like there was a specific, like, where it's like Andrews is running to the flat, and then the outside guy's running like a post, and they're obviously, like, setting up a wheel, and Jamin just kind of, like, stops covering him, like, middle of the route, and you're like, what's going on? And he had a couple of those where it's like, he's matched up on a back, and the back, is running to go. And he and again, like, Jamin's a guy that needs to see it, and he needs to talk about it in terms of route concept. And I felt like the second day he came out and played much better. I thought physically, in terms of, like, fit and runs and being where he's supposed to be in that standpoint, he did well both days, but I felt like his coverage got better on the second day, and so, like, again, like in the game, you're not going to get that, like, oh, first day's out, next day's in. So that was something.
But you do watch tape throughout the week.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's kind of the balance of like, yeah, you might not see it. I mean, I guess your scout team will run it, but like if it comes down to like how well do your coaches and your scouts like get the advance right, and that's not an ideal situation for a player. You got to be able to go out and play. Like if he's seen it, he'll be great. If he hasn't, yikes. That seems to be kind of what you're saying.
I think also it's important to note that like he's been really impressive, like damn near perfect in practice. So like maybe that's why some of those mistakes are a little bit more glaring in one of the practices. Like I said, I think he got better the second day, but maybe that's why, because like he's been awesome. He's been really, really good, and so to see that kind of hiccup was a little bit surprising. But I guess everyone's entitled to an off day.
For sure. Definitely. And then secondary wise, I mean, there's a lot of talk about Forbes. He had, some tough one-on-one reps. Kind of making their way. But like,
just talk about that for a second?
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say is like one-on-ones are designed for the offense to win, and especially the offense to win if they want to take a DB inside towards the middle of the field where there would typically be help. And every single one of everyone being like, oh, he got smoked. It's like, yeah, the dude ran a triple move where the quarterback would have been sacked and then ran to where the help would be.
And also all those are in the red zone, like red zone one-on-ones. So like, yes, like it's just so frustrating when fans get all crazy about it. Because like red zone, you're going to run quarters, like red quarters all the time. So there's going to be a dude standing like right there. Like, if you want to run in, like, good luck. You're going to be dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, go run in there. Fine. Get smoked by that guy. Get smoked by Foster or whoever, or Cam Curl. So it's always super frustrating. And, like, in those man situations, like, in the red zone situations, you'll see the quarterback hold the ball longer because it's like they're running a dig, they're running an out, they're running and if anything, the pressure is more acute in the red zone. So the ball has to be out quicker. So it's like, all this stuff, and it's just like, and so what I will say is I thought his reps were competitive. I thought he was in relatively good position. Did he lose a couple reps? Yes, but I don't think that situation is entirely realistic. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
100%. As for some of the other stuff, I mean, he does let Beckham behind him. But he does show the great makeup speed. I mean, he's a guy that's going to play in trail position, and if a quarterback is going to loft one perfectly over his very long outstretched arms, he will take that. He's also going to make, I think, more plays on that. But I think it is concerning.
Beckham,
he's.
I guess
still good.
I slept on how good he is still because, like, he's been hurt all this time, but like. He's a good football player. So
he's so good. Savvy, fast. I mean, people forget just how freakishly athletic he was at his prime, and he's still pretty damn athletic. But yeah, I mean, I do think there's some times where it's like, man, that is a lot of separation, even if you have your good makeup speed. And that's going to be the question when we get into the regular season is like, do some of those gambles pay off for the offense in a big way? Where he gives up some big plays. Overall, anybody else that's worth highlighting on the secondary? I feel like Holmes made a couple of plays. Continues to be super physical. That's great. What else?
He had a late punch out in the red zone, which is good. He also had one where he got called for holding, little ticky tack, and then he had one where like the receiver obviously like pushed off him, and he like turned to the ref like in the middle of the play and was like, "What are you looking at?" And the guy ran for like a big play. So I'm like, like, come on, bro. Like, I get what's going on here. It's practice, but like, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like,
keep playing.
Tag the guy off and do whatever you're doing. So there's that. I think Cam Curl deserves a lot of credit. Matching up with Mark Andrews, you already alluded to that. He did a really nice job. And then Fuller, I think a lot of people are like, oh, Fuller had a tough day. But I think overall, like, he made some plays were made on him, but that's kind of who he is at the moment. Like, he's in good position. He's going to make good plays. Like, but like he's not a perfect defensive back, So like, also St. Just I thought had a pretty good day. There was a couple there was a one-on-one with Zay Jones, which again is like making it around the Twitterverse right now. But like again, those are red zone routes. That's not how it's going to play out in real life. So I think overall they did a pretty good job. Like I said, conceptually there were some concepts that Baltimore ran that just breaks rules for this group. Like they ran like a double in concept and the back runs to the flat in a weird 3x1 off of motion. And it's like, the linebacker's probably got to match that dude, but like he sees the first in and they pass it off in their man match. the corner has to then match the flat, and they don't match it right. They do like a cross release.
Was Quan the nickel on that one?
I think so.
Yeah, I remember that play and just thinking like that's something happened there that was not supposed to be. Like Quan's the closest defender, but that doesn't feel like it was supposed to be on him. There should have been someone else there.
Yeah, and so what they usually do is usually they just match the back with the linebacker. But if it's a true zone match, at least in the ones I've seen, and again, determining their zone match is in their rules is damn near impossible. But on a crossing route, usually you would pass that to the linebacker, and then the guy who's on the crossing route would take the back. Right, but it happens so fast that it doesn't seem like the right way to handle it. So, but again, that's a concept that, especially with a younger DB and maybe a young linebacker, I don't know who's in a linebacker, is just hard to defend. They run that silly they run a wheel with Mark Andrews and a post by what's his face Beckham. And they don't pass it off correctly. I think our offense doesn't really run a ton of that stuff. So it makes sense that they're going to have a hard time with some of these concepts that they don't see every single day in practice. But I think overall, especially the second day, I thought the defense did a good job. I thought, given the parameters of the first day for the defense, I think it went about as I would expect. And I think, John Allen is John Allen. And that was cool to see him just be dominant in his one-on-ones, dominant in team. Also interesting, Montez Sweat was a little bit quiet going against Morgan Moses, who again is a top 12 offensive tackle in the NFL, which I thought was kind of surprising because I think, we're very high on Montez and I think he's poised for a big year, but how does he handle better competition? And I think that was maybe an insight into that, but I do think he's a guy who wins a lot with effort rushes, and you don't get a lot of those in practice, obviously. So
yeah, there were even some periods where there was a move the ball period that ended in them attempting field goals. I think it was 2 minutes. 2 minute, yeah, and the rush was definitely not
quiet.
Live.
Yeah,
not
live rush,
that was weird because it was Lamar was so chill, and it's yeah, you are playing. I know you're good and you're comfortable and you're Lamar Jackson MVP. And by the way, watching Lamar in person was impressive. He's so good.
He was really good. Yeah,
but his body language said, "I am not getting remotely touched. Not even fake. I'm wearing a black jersey and they can't touch me. He was just chilling, which I thought was interesting. It's 2 minute. I'm pretty sure they're going to pass rush. But all right, anything? We're gonna Alex. Let me pass along one special teams note real quick because I had a one-on-one conversation with Rivera about it, and then on the punt return side of things, in take 5, we'll talk about Dax Milne versus Kaz Allen, and kind of that last receiver spot and how punt return plays into it. So bonus episode tomorrow on that. But we've talked about Cameron Cheeseman and the low snaps, and there was definitely a couple of those on day 1 of practice, including, I believe, on the kick that Joey Sly missed by a mile, one of the worst missed field goals I've ever seen from an NFL kicker. There's no way that was a clean operation because he missed it so badly. And so I asked Ron after the presser, I was like, hey, are you worried about this at all? And he says, no. And I was like, I know that he's working on stuff. He's like, yeah, he's working on it. We have full faith. He's working on it. It's fine. Those snaps are low. We've told him, hey man, you got to get it up. You got to get it back to the knee. And I brought up the punt snap as well in the game that was low. He's like, yep, we saw that for sure. And so I asked him hey, what's the deadline? You obviously you got to let guys work through stuff when they're trying out new techniques. But there is also a deadline. The line I used on the radio is the calendar waits for no one.
Right.
That season opener is coming no matter what. And he said, I would say kind of this game. He's got to, we want to see good, clean snaps in the game. And if not, then we start to maybe worry a little bit. So I thought that was worth passing along. It's an interesting thing that a guy that seemed to be pretty good at a position where, just do your job is the most true. Right. There's no extra to do as a long snapper. Is tweaking with his technique. I don't really get it, but I'm also not a special teams coach. I'm not a long snapper. I have no expertise in the area.
Right.
I'm just a guy who talks about football on the radio. So I hope that Cheese gets his technique down and we have good, clean snapping. And this is the last we talk about the long snapper for the year.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so too. It's did he say what he's working? Has he said what he's working on? That'd be interesting to find out.
I mean, I guess I've put myself in long snapper reporting duty at this point, so maybe I'll talk to Cheeseman next week.
Yeah, just ask him because that's something because I have long snapped and again not to the level of what they're doing, but it'd just be interesting to hear is it his snapback? Is it, how the ball's leaving his hand? It just would be interesting to hear like what he's tweaked and why he's tweaked it, and to keep an eye on it in the game, I guess,
Yeah, no, definitely keep an eye on it in the game. All right, that is it. Unless you have anything else to add, we've only been podcasting for an hour.
I think we've covered like everything. If there's something we didn't cover, please leave a comment, and then we'll
cover it.
Address it at some point.
Cover it next week. Speaking of next week, I think we'll probably get through the game to do a pod. So Tuesday morning, I would anticipate us podding again. So look for it as early as we can on Tuesday in terms of turning around on the edit. But yeah, Tuesday morning won't be in your feeds by the time you go to work, if you go to work for a 9 to 5 job. But it will certainly be there by the time that you are on the way home or on your lunch break or while you sit at your desk and not pay as much attention to your job as you're supposed to. Take 5 tomorrow on Milne and Allen and any of the other punt return stuff. And that's the plan, kiddos. Subscribe wherever you are watching or listening right now, and we'll see you tomorrow for Take 5 on Take Command. Of course, I host that with Logan Paulson, and we are out multiple times a week in your podcast feeds and full episodes on YouTube at 106.7 The Fan. We get back here on the radio. Who are the under-the-radar players for the Commanders? Guys that we haven't really talked about much, but could really matter this season. We'll run through the list next before training camp. Pick 6 at 6 here on the Team 980.
Craig Hoffman covers every angle.
show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Back half of the show also streaming live as the first half did on YouTube at the Team 980. That is Anthony Haney, producer of the radio show. Hello, he says. I'm Craig Hoffman, the host of the show. What's going on? So, Anthony, you had a very interesting idea before the show. I like this a lot. And obviously, we'll get back to the main story of the day where Sam Howell has been named the starting quarterback. There's only so much to talk about with it because we've known it's coming, but we'll get back to it at 6 o'clock in our training camp pick 6 at 6. But you had a really good idea to talk about some of the guys that we haven't talked about, the underrated players, and not necessarily even underrated, the under-the-radar players of the Commanders training camp so far. Now, on the live stream, we got a couple. Amani Roberts checking in. What's up, Amani? And he goes, would Andre Jones still be under the radar? I actually don't think he is because he is getting the love he deserves, and especially I think after he got those 1 reps earlier in the week, we were just talking about it on Take Command, but those 1 reps that he got earlier in the week against Baltimore, it's hard to say a guy that's a 7th-round pick that's getting first-team reps is under the radar anymore. But I think he was flying a bit under until that point where everyone's kind of like, I think he's pretty good. He's showing some stuff. Like, he's better than Shaka Toney ever was, is kind of the same kind of 7th-round pass rush juice flyer. But I think he's really proven himself so far. It's training camp. It is what it is. But he's definitely like on the radar now. And I think some of the other guys, Amani threw out a couple of other names. Mason Brooks, like he's leveled out. He's still solid, but he's kind of more playing to what you'd think as an undrafted free agent. Not quite as much pop as he was initially those first couple of weeks of camp. And then Mitchell Tinsley, the wide receiver from Penn State, same thing. Like, I think he's been good the whole camp. I don't know that he's under the radar, but I don't know that he necessarily belongs on the radar because I just feel like there's too much of a squeeze in that wide receiver room. I think there's too many guys. I don't think there's a way for him. I don't think there's a way for him on the roster. If he balls out, could he? Yes, but like joint practices, he struggled a little bit as a gunner on teams, and that's going to be how you make the team as an end roster wide receiver. I think he's got a much better chance of being on the practice squad all year, coming back next year, and maybe, fighting for Byron Pringle's 5th spot next year, or see what happens with De'Ami Brown in the offseason. Although I think De'Ami's got 1 more year. I don't think this is his contract year. But yeah, that's the list from YouTube. Anthony, what about you though? What you got? And I know you are also looking, speaking of free agents, at a ton of guys who are in their contract year. So who do you want to know more about that you think has flown under the radar?
Yeah, so a guy like Curtis Samuels, I think, has been a little bit overshadowed. Considering, when we signed him 2 years ago, we had, all these expectations for him in terms of the offense. And I think the rise of Jahan Dotson, like his growth, has sort of kind of put Curtis Samuel from wide receiver 2 and more so to wide receiver 3. I think last year you asked us this question, who's the top, 2 wide receivers? We're going to go Terry, we're going to go Curtis, and Jahan, he has a lot to prove. But I think Jahan Dotson has, he's emerged and he's cemented himself as that wide receiver number 2. And we haven't really heard too much of Curtis Samuel. And I think a week or 2 ago, I think we were talking about what Curtis Samuel's role would be and like how it would sort of kind of be diminished to an extent and how he would be used, all over the field, but the production might not necessarily be there. So I think Curtis Samuel is a guy that, we haven't really talked much about, who I'm still, expecting to, have some type of production, but he's sort of flown under the radar all camp.
It's a great call, man. And it's an especially great call if you paid attention to joint practices. Because there's something about when you get out there and it's not the same guys that the veterans just know how to get it done a little bit better than the younger guys, which is, by the way, why Jahan Dotson was so damn impressive, because Jahan Dotson acted like a veteran. This is not to say that Jahan didn't pull his weight, but Curtis also showed up. Like, Curtis had some catches. And by the way, that was without any of the Curtis Samuel stuff, if you will. There were no jet, like they pulled back a lot more than Baltimore did. No jet sweeps, no Curtis in the backfield from what I can remember. Like there was none of that stuff, which absolutely will be a part of the game plan. We've seen that when they practice in Ashburn. It's no secret, but they didn't want to show it on the live stream against Baltimore, how they're going to get to that stuff. So I think Curtis, just as a pure wide receiver, probably is a little underrated. A guy who can get separation, a guy who does have good hands, a guy who, like Jahan and Terry, plays bigger than his size. He'll go up and get a ball and had some really key third down catches last year. He didn't have a ton of catches, and I think that was a huge problem. They need to get him the ball more.
Yeah.
But especially for an offense that wants to go up tempo, wants to get the ball in playmakers' hands quickly, like a little bit more like Oregon used to, is like kind of the extreme example. Like, hey, we're going to run 100 plays in a game. I don't think the Commanders are going to run 100, but they're going to try to run 80. And that means more opportunities. And I think Curtis Samuel could be a huge beneficiary. And I don't think he's had a bad training camp. He hasn't been incredible. I remember there was one play where he got a ball. I don't know whether it was lost in the sun or he just got turned around and you're like, man. But he was still wide open down the middle. Like the route was good. He was where he was supposed to be. You just got to finish it. And, got turned around. It happens. So I think Curtis is a great, under the radar. I'd be curious to look up, on a FanDuel or whoever, the yardage prop for him.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's that high, but could he have a couple of big games this year and certainly some key catches in big spots? And is he going to be the kind of guy that sets up other things with his usage? Yeah, he's still a weapon. He's still Curtis Samuel. And Curtis Samuel's it's the kind of thing where coaches fear him more than his production. I would say that. Because the potential of what he can do is so high that if you simply just stop accounting for him, you are asking for him to hurt you. But if you do the things you need to do to contain him, he has proven that he's not as hard to contain as an elite receiver is.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you said, I don't know. I think Jahan Dotson, just who he's become is it just
Curtis is wide receiver
shocking.
3.
Huh? What'd you say?
Curtis is wide receiver 3.
Yeah, it's not shocking. It's just I didn't know he was going to develop as fast and as quickly as he was, and it's just so blatantly obvious.
Let's be honest. Neither did they. There's no way. I mean, maybe because they did take him a lot higher than a lot of people. But I think what Ron has gotten right, Ron, the Martys, etc. When they hit a player right, it's as much about understanding the character of the player and the maturity of the player. Their best guys not only are talented physically, but they have this is why I think Forbes is going to be really good. They have a great head on their shoulders. And that's the thing with Jahan is Jahan's got Jahan is a little more FU than I think people realize too. Straight up, he is a guy that is competitive, and you need a little bit of diva in you as a wide receiver. You can still be a humble, good human being off the field, but when you get out there, he straight up said, I don't think anyone can guard me in man-to-man situations.
Yeah.
If I said, hey, pick a receiver in the NFL that said, I can't guard me, or no one can guard me one-on-one in man-to-man situations, you'd be like, who, 1999 Randy Moss? That's the kind of swagger that the elite receivers carry themselves with. Justin Jefferson, you can imagine saying that. I mean, Terry, you can imagine saying that for sure. But Jahan in year 2 already being no one can guard me one-on-one. He's got that swagger and that confidence. And by the way, he's not wrong. Good luck if you get stuck on him one-on-one with his route running ability. And he's going to get one-on-one a lot because your other option is you leave Terry on an island, and that's dangerous. So he's got it all, man. This is not me saying that I think Curtis is flying under the radar is not because I think Jahan is getting attention he doesn't deserve. I think Jahan's that good, and Curtis is not getting attention is a little bit of a byproduct of that. But don't forget that Curtis is also super dangerous, and this is why I think he's going to have some game-winning type of plays this year, is because they're going to look at the matchups across the board, and teams are going to double Terry and double Jahan, and all of a sudden Curtis is going to wind up one-on-one with some poor nickel, and that's a good matchup for the Commanders. The question is, can Sam, can EB identify it? Can Sam identify it? And can they make the play?
And I think that's what Cordell, when we had him on Tuesday or Wednesday. That's what he, he highlighted about the wide receiving core. Like, a lot of secondaries are going to have, trouble trying to defend all three of these guys. And if you can get, matchup situations, it's all going to come down to, Sam making the right read, offensive line, holding their water, and then, us just executing, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, too, is, like, all three of those guys can play it. Like, I don't want to say, like, they can play all three spots, because I'm not sure that, like, Terry, not that I would bet against Terry if he spent the time to do it, but, like, Terry's not learning the zebra position. Like, he doesn't need to know the slot receiver. But you can line him up inside and trust that he will run in certain plays and packages that he will do it. And the thing is with Curtis is, like, he's not just a slot guy. He can, and obviously Jahan has shown he's not that either. Like, Curtis can line up outside at the X or the Z on a given play, and he can go get it. And if that's the case, then that also creates matchup nightmares inside if Jahan and Terry bump in. So do you follow them with your best corners inside? Do you let your nickel cover those guys? Do you wind up with Jahan on a safety like happened against Cleveland?
Yep.
I mean, that's the type of thing that happens when you're not game planning, and that poor safety's like, oh, God, I guess this is my job because we called this play and this coverage and we didn't anticipate this happening to us. Cool. And then all of a sudden he's turned around sideways, not knowing where the hell Jahan went, and next thing you know is in the end zone. So, like, Curtis being able to do all of that stuff, not to mention you have to worry about him all the jet sweepy stuff. Like, I think it's a great call and one of the more under the radar guys who could have a huge impact. All right, we got a full list. We only got to Curtis there because Curtis was such an interesting one to discuss. But Anthony's got a whole other list. We'll tackle the rest of his list next, and then it's our training camp pick 6 at 6 on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Here's what's trending.
Secondary wise, I mean, there's a lot of talk about Forbes. He had some tough one-on-one reps that were kind of making their way. But like,
just talk about that for a second.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is like one-on-ones are designed for the offense to win, and especially the offense to win if they want to take a DB inside towards the middle of the field where there would typically be help. And every single one of everyone being like, oh, he got smoked. It's like, yeah, the dude ran a triple move where the quarterback would have been sacked and then ran to where the help would be.
And also all those are in the red zone, like red zone one-on-ones. So like, yes, like it's just so frustrating when fans get all crazy about it. Cause like red zone, you're going to run quarters, like red quarters all the time. So there's going to be a dude standing like right there. Like, if you want to run in, like, good luck. You're going to be dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, go run in there. Fine. Get smoked by that guy. Get smoked by Foster or whoever, or Cam Curl. So it's always super frustrating. And, like, in those man situations, like, in the red zone situations, you'll see the quarterback hold the ball longer because it's like they're running a dig, they're running an out, they're running and if anything, the pressure is more acute in the red zone. So the ball has to be out quicker. So it's like, all this stuff, and it's just like, and so what I will say is I thought his reps were competitive. I thought he was in relatively good position. Did he lose a couple reps? Yes, but I don't think that situation is entirely realistic. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Hoffman Show. Training Camp Pick 6 at 6 coming up at 6 because that's why we call it the Pick 6 at 6. Here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. All right, we're continuing with our list of under-the-radar players for the Commanders. Anthony Haney has compiled that list. Super producer, sorry, got to use your full name. Super producer Haney. Who's the next guy on your list after Curtis Samuel?
So the next guy I have is Antonio Gibson. And part of the reason I have him on here is because I think Brian Robinson has I think he's going to end up being RB1.
For sure. He is RB1, no doubt.
But ask us this question. Last year, we all knew Antonio Gibson, this was his job to sort of kind of lose. And I think the fumbling, problem and things of that nature definitely affected him and his production. So I think he's on here just because I don't know what his role is necessarily going to be. We haven't really heard too much about him this camp. And, I just don't know what our expectations for Gibson are this year.
Yeah, so I think when you compare it to a year ago, it's interesting because my recollection is, yes, Gibson was RB1, but it was going to be like 1A, 1B. And then the fumbling stuff kind of really pushed him down. And then all of a sudden, hey, we got to bring him back up because the tragedy happens where Brian Robinson gets shot and he's obviously out and unavailable for a while. But the other thing the other guy that we forget if we rewinded a year is J.D. McKissick. And he had that third down role carved out, and everyone knew that was his deal. I think that's Gibson's deal this year. Now, it's going to be split in some ways. I think there will be certain packages where certain guys might be in. Do you use Curtis Samuel a little bit in certain situations? Do you use a guy like Chris Rodriguez, who looked great as a blocker in terms of pass pro? Like, do you just throw him back there? Or even Alex Arma, if he makes the team as a fullback, and be like, we are in pass protection right now. We would like someone to stand next to the quarterback and make sure he doesn't die. Alex Arma, get out there. Like, I think you could see that where McKissick kind of was the guy for all roles. And obviously how Eric Bieniemy uses a third down back is different than how Scott Turner did. But I think generally speaking, the guy they want to have out there in those situations, or a guy to get into space using the screen game, potentially cause matchup issues by lining him up in the slot, even though he's a running back. That's going to be Antonio Gibson. The question I have actually is, where does Chris Rodriguez fit in? Because he's looked awesome. And does he bite into Gibson's carries? Does he bite into Robinson's carries? I would think it's Robinson's, even though Robinson has looked good. So I agree with you that I think Gibson is a little bit flown under the radar. And I think that happened a little bit last year, too. People forgot how good he was. He was a 1,000-yard rusher 2 years ago.
Yep.
But going into his contract year, I think it's worth watching. What is his role? He's going to try to make the most of every carry. Hopefully that channels in a good way. But, does he grow frustrated? Too, if his role is smaller and he's like, damn, I'm in a contract year. I know how it goes for running backs. But I think he'll have an important role, and, we'll see what happens. I mean, also think back the star power. I know Terry did this is such a silly measure, but the Eastern's Automotives ad.
Oh, yeah.
Terry was the solo guy this year, which is probably because Terry's price went up. It tends to happen after you get a bunch of other money. You're just not willing to take the money you used to do certain things. But also, they did 3 guys last year, and it was Curtis, Antonio, and Terry. That's how big Antonio was going into last season. I don't think that had they picked 3 players this year instead of just going with Terry, that Antonio would have been on the list.
Yeah.
Even though he's a good actor.
Yeah. A lot of energy.
Those commercials were very funny.
Did we have him on the show last year?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was bummed I missed the shoot this year. I messed up the date. It was my chance to sit down with Terry again, and I missed it. I told him at camp. He was like, yeah, no, it was so fun, though. So look forward to the commercials. I was like, okay. You're welcome, Easterns, for the free shout-out. I don't know why I gave you that, because you're nice people. Anyway, continue, Anthony. Who's next on your list?
Next people I have, and I sort of kind of put a dash just because I have Kendall Fuller and Cam Curl. Kendall, to an extent, just because we've, talked so much about Forbes. We've talked so much about BSJ, playing the nickel. Kendall's sort of kind of been forgotten about a little bit. We have had him on the show, though. So everyone's been able to hear from him. But I think this camp he's flown under the radar a little bit. And then Cam Curl, he didn't necessarily get his contract done before training camp, and he hasn't really said too much about it either. And I just don't think we've heard too much from him. He has been making some plays in camp, but still, I think I would love to, see more visuals of him, and things of that nature.
So joint practices, he was a little louder because he got matched up with Mark Andrews a lot, and those were good battles. Cam had some wins. Andrews also definitely had some wins, but he's probably a top 5 tight end in the league. Like he's real good. But Cam hung with him, and considering the amount of reps that he had against him, like that's impressive. I also think for these two though, like the part of the reason they fly under the radar is they're just reliable. Like what they are. Yep. They do the things that you expect them to do. And part of the reason you get on the radar in a lot of instances is because you either like Andre Jones is on the radar because he's overperforming, or there's questions. Like Sadiq Charles is on the radar because like can dude stay on the field? So it's easy to go back to one of the names that one of the commenters had earlier. Like it's easy for Mason Brooks to get on the radar because he does one good thing, and you're like, who's that guy? I didn't know who that was. When you're Kendall Fuller and you're in year 8 or whatever he is, and you're a known commodity, like unless he's just getting toasted every rep, if he wins some, loses some, wins more than he loses, like is in the right place, making plays, like he's Kendall Fuller, and that's who he is. Kendall Fuller has been Kendall Fullering all camp, and that way that is a good thing because it means he's set up for a solid but not perfect season, because that's what Kendall Fuller gives you at this stage of his career, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. But that's your Kendall Fuller update. Kendall Fuller be Kendall Fullering.
Those two guys, man, consistent. And the last two people we have on here, James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill. Again, a huge part of the pass rush that we had last season just because Chase Young was out. Somebody had to fill the void, and those two were the guys. And I think they necessarily haven't, gotten a lot of shine because, Chase Young is back. And I think people have sort of forgotten how important they were towards last season. So those are the last two.
Yeah, not only is Chase back, but like FA has had a tremendous camp and has gotten a lot of like when the days that Chase has missed has been out with the ones. And obviously Andre Jones has really been the kind of overperforming guy. But like James has showed up. And it's been really interesting watching him work in combination with John. Or a couple of times he's been playing a lot of 3 technique of late. We've been talking about that on the show. That's been on our radar. But he's had production. I mean, he had a sack in the game. He's gone from that 3 technique, been able to loop outside and get some pressures. Like he's had a good camp, doing some different stuff. But I think Casey's had a fantastic camp. Like he has shown up. I mean, Daisy, you've been out there. Like how many times has 95 been in the backfield? Is there some stuff to be desired with his game? Always. He's a former 7th round pick. Like, there's the occasional run that gets outside of him, and he's not an explosive pass rusher and getting pressures at the rate that Chase and Montez are. But like, I think he's gotten a little bit quicker. I think he's gotten a little bit bendier. Like, I think his pass rush is looking the best it has as he enters his 4th year. So I'm very intrigued to see the usage for these guys, especially if Chase misses any time this year. God forbid Montez misses any time this year. But these are guys that I think have continued to play well and should be applauded for such, while a lot of other people are getting headlines for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, and I think also it just goes to our depth again. Having these two coming off, when Chase and Montez needs a blow, being able to rely on these two guys. And they're motivated. They're not just, going to accept being a backup.
Yeah, because, also, not only are they motivated by not wanting to be backups, like, they are in contract years, both of them.
That too.
So yeah, that's a good list. That was a fun exercise, Anthony. That's us. We're good at exercising. Not things. Never mind. I'm not going there. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, it is time for our training camp. Pick 6 at 6.
The Team 980 is...
how nervous were you to interview Josh Harris?
Dude, that's a really funny story. Like, he was sitting there, he's sitting in the front row. And I was like, man, should we try to get him? And so I just went up and I was like, hey, man, I know the security guard that was with him. Like, it's good to know security guards. And he was like, yeah, man. Like, hey, Josh, this is Logan Paulson. He works for the team. He was like, hey, Josh, really nice to meet you. Would you mind doing like a 2-question interview at halftime? And then he goes, just keep it general. And yeah, no problem. He was so kind and generous with his time. And like, it was great.
And I thought it was so great that he was just like, no, I'm going to sit right there. I'm going to get kind of a feel of the sidelines. But especially when it's raining, like, I thought it was great that he was on the sideline.
Again, as a former player, it felt really cool in the rain to see him hanging out, him and his boy. I got a ton of respect for that. And, he was great in the interview, really accommodating. So thank you, Mr. Josh Harris. But yeah, man, I was a little nervous.
As someone who was on the Washington beat in 2019 when Josh Johnson came in and finished that season, I cannot believe Josh Johnson is still in the league playing for yet another team. I think he's played for all of them. That'd actually be fun. Can he try to play for every single team? He's going to need a couple midseason trades. But
he's close.
He's closer than he should be.
Because how old is he? How old is Josh Johnson?
I don't know. Here, we're going to look this up. This is always my favorite radio, but we're going to look this up because
he's
the
37.
world deserves to know.
He's
37.
That's older than I thought.
And that's the thing. He was like in his 30s when he showed up and Jay Gruden was like, I don't know, we're going to let Josh run around in 2019. And he's played for literally 14 NFL teams.
Wow. Even if he gets half, even if we can get just 2 more in his career.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Get half, to say that he played for half the league, because at that point you got to think of the man cave, right? You have name on a game-worn jersey for 16 different teams.
Well, and that doesn't count the other leagues he's played in. Like, I don't know what league the Sacramento Mountain Lions are in. Apparently, an American football. It's the American football team based in Sacramento, United Football League. But he played for him in 2012. He also played for the Los Angeles Wildcats. Who can forget of the kind of original XFL 2.0? If the current one's 3.0 and the one with He Hate Me back in the day was 1.0. He played the San Diego Fleet in the Alliance. Remember the Alliance?
Oh yeah, I forgot he was in that league.
So he's played for like 17 teams, 14 NFL teams. And counting. Clearly, if there's one of those two guys gets midseason traded, it's going to be Josh Johnson, because that's what happens to Josh Johnson.
This is a work of art. This whole, he's played for the Niners 4 times: 2012, 2014, 2020, and then 2022. He's played for the Niners.
I think on your show, I was going to do this to you, but I decided that we didn't really have the time to do it properly. You on your show, just randomly, you should just quiz your co-host and be like, did Josh Johnson play for this team?
Oh, that's actually a great bit. That's a great bit. If we start that bit, I will give you full credit for it, but this is a great bit.
Excellent. That's all I need. All right. If you need me to come guest host it, I will buy a tiny microphone off Amazon and plug it in and everything. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It is time for our training camp Pick 6 at 6, where we pick the top 6 storylines of the day, talk about them for you. That way you have everything you need to know in a nice, tidy 20 minutes. here on the Team 980. Let's get it going, Anthony. It's pretty easy what number one is today. Sam Howell is the starting quarterback for the Washington Commanders for the regular season. That announcement made before practice this morning by Ron Rivera. By the way, Anthony, just real quick, housekeeping note, kind of ish. Did you see Ron's visually see Ron Rivera's press conference this morning?
So I saw JP take a photo of Ron sitting on the table with the mic down here.
Do we have any idea what the hell that was about?
I don't know.
Can we get an official statement from Commanders Public Relations on why Ron Rivera, instead of sitting behind the table, I'm guessing they had some kind of tech issue with their microphone, and so their broadcast partners, NBC4, Ron was holding like an NBC4 microphone.
That's what it was.
He was holding it like sorry, I'm going to be very pointed here for a second. This might offend some people from personal experience, but microphones do not work if you do not talk into them. So people that think because they're holding a microphone that there's osmosis from their hand to the vocal projection into the microphone, that's not how it works. So Ron was like sitting on top of the table with the microphone down at his belly button doing this press conference, and I don't know why. I'm curious. I would like to know. That's not actually an official part of our training camp, Pick 6 at 6. That's just a bonus thing that I would like answers to, and perhaps I will investigate at a later date. However, the most important thing is what he said into that microphone, which is that Sam Howell is the starting quarterback. Whatever mic issues the Commanders were having before practice were fixed by after, because Sam Howell sat down at his usual spot and talked about what it meant being named QB1.
For the opportunity that, coach has given me. So just shout out to Coach Rivera for just believing in me and always trusting me really since I got here. So I just shout out to him. And just all my coaches, EB, Tavita, Zampezi, just Luke, all the guys, Jacoby. There's been so many guys here that have helped me in my development and my career that have ultimately led to the position I'm in today. So really just a shout out to all those guys.
I think that's really classy from Sam to talk about all the guys who have helped him, because this is a group project. I mean, playing quarterback in the NFL is hard. You can't do it by yourself, and you need a head coach, obviously, especially when that head coach is also in charge of the personnel department, to believe in you and draft you. And then you need ultimately that guy to believe in you and give you that shot in the first place in not only training camp, but in OTAs and empowering you and surrounding you by the right people. Ron had to obviously redo his staff in the offseason, and being able to keep Kenny Zampezi, who had a good relationship with Sam, but was clearly not the right choice for offensive coordinator, all due respect, especially when Eric Bieniemy was on the table, was a good decision. Keeping someone in the room with EB and obviously Tavita Pritchard, who EB wanted to bring in, that could speak to Sam in language that he was familiar with. Say, if there was a concept, and I don't know how often this happened, but conceptually, like if there was something they did last year and called it X, but now EB calls it Y, having Kenny Zampezi, who's got tons of NFL experience, to be able to go, hey, man, it's just like Y that we ran last year, except for you tweak here and here. It makes things easier. And so you not only get that from Zampezi, but you get that from a guy like Brissett as QB2, pushing him as a competitor, but also helping him. And that's how a competition within a team should go. And I think in many ways this played out kind of perfectly. Obviously, he's still got to go perform now. But if Sam Howell was going to be the guy, this is how this should have gone. And I think it's great that Sam credits all the people that helped him get to this point for that. Then there's obviously kind of the emotional side of it. Like, what does this mean to Sam Howell to actually be a starting NFL quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot, of course. I mean, just to have this opportunity in front of me means everything to me. But I think all of my work is ahead of me, and I know this is only the beginning. And I know I have a lot of work in front of me, and that's what I'm kind of focused on right now.
That's the thing. For as much as this is an exciting day, it's a much smaller and much less expensive version of what Josh Harris said. Like, Josh Harris finally wins the bidding. He gets the team. He buys the team. He watches all that money get wired out of his account and go to wherever it went to get to Dan Snyder. And then he's like, oh, shoot, now I own the team. I gotta fix it. Like, I got stuff to do. I gotta go to work. And that's what Sam has done now, right? Except for this, hopefully, is going to help Sam make a lot of money as opposed to, the $6 billion price tag of buying a team. But I just so distinctly remember Harris's quotes of, hey, I'm sweating this. I've had a lot of sleepless nights. We got a lot of work to do. Getting to the starting line is a part of the journey. It's not like you magically show up there, but the perspective to know, like, this is still the starting line is very important, and that's what Howell has now. And it's a lot easier to be at that starting line and not look backwards at all, not look around at all, and just be like, okay, now I can focus forward. I don't have to worry about winning the job. I don't have to worry about every mistake being the one that could cost me the job. But every mistake that I don't learn from is one that I could repeat in a game and cost this team game, because now the responsibility shifts from you to us, if you will, or from me to us, if you're Sam. From my seat, I guess it would shift from him to them, from Sam to the team as a whole. And the good news for him is that support system that he talked about earlier is not going anywhere. Those are the people that are going to help him succeed. But a big day for Sam Howell in just his second year as a fifth-round pick. That is not a responsibility that a lot of fifth-round picks get. But in my humble opinion, he deserves it. He is really talented. He's got a great head on his shoulders from everything that I know about the kid. And certainly wishing him well, because I would like to cover a good football team and have all of you be able to root for a good football team, which comes with good quarterback play. Our training camp pick 6 at 6 here on the Hoffman Show. There's been a huge emphasis, number 2, on the quick game in this offense. It is a big part of what Patrick Mahomes did. I think you saw in the game the other night in Cleveland that there was a ton of plays where Sam just had options to get the ball out quickly. Same thing with Jacoby and Jake Fromm, although Fromm, they ran the ball a ton when he was in there. But just quick over the ball, quick, kind of just outside the hashes, kind of center of the field stuff to get the ball into the playmaker's hands quickly and avoid pressure. So how is that quick passing game coming along? Here is Ron Rivera before practice today.
I've seen good decision-making and accuracy. He gets the ball out quickly. He's got quick twitch to make a decision. And again, like I said, there are some things, there's been some growing pains. There was a couple examples from the Cleveland game that we've worked on and corrected, and we saw it happen in Baltimore's practice. Almost the same exact situation, and in the Baltimore practice, he answered the question. He didn't answer the question in the preseason game, but it was something that was worked on, something that he had practiced, and then sure enough, it happened in one of the practice drills with Baltimore, and he made the right decision and said, okay, there's growth. He gets that. Those are the kind of things that we were looking for, is that he doesn't repeat the same mistake, that he learns from his mistakes, and he can self-correct at times if he has to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Does he actually learn from the mistakes? Because we're going to have to live with him making mistakes this year, and they're going to have to live with him making mistakes. What you can't live with is making the same mistake twice, 3 times, 4 times, just never learning, because that means you're not getting better. And, for as good as Sam is right now and a nice little preseason he's had, it's within the context that if you play at this level for 17 games, that's not the goal here. The goal is to be progressively better. And if this is who you are, it's not good enough to be a long-term winning NFL quarterback. The reason that it's exciting that he's already here is that he is a second-year player that was a fifth-round pick. And if he's already this good, where can he go? Especially because, as Ron mentioned in the beginning of that answer, he has some things you just can't teach. He has a freaking live arm, a freaky quick twitch ability to get the ball out at multiple arm angles on the run and still throw with zip and velocity. You can't teach that. And so the fact that they've got a guy with the raw materials, if you will, to do that stuff is why you look at him and go, this is not just a get us to next year project. He could be the guy moving forward, which would be the first time they've had a guy since Kirk Cousins. A reminder, this is the 7th straight year that Washington will start a different quarterback week 1. The last one to repeat was Cousins in 2015, 16, and 17. So for that quick game, the other part of it in terms of yes, he's got the quick twitchiness, the velocity to make that stuff happen. You also have to think quickly, and thinking quickly is actually, kind of backing it up before to pre-snap. Can you figure out what the defense is doing pre-snap and know where the ball is going to go, or at least have it narrowed down to where it's a simple A-B decision if a linebacker, floats one way, you throw the other, floats the other way, you throw back the first one. That kind of very simplified decision making. And part of that comes with experience. But there's also just kind of an understanding of the offense and what defenses are trying to do to you that goes into that as well. It's called the quick game because it happens quickly. And that is going to be a process as well. And the problem is, the reason I make that kind of tongue-in-cheek statement is there's not a lot of time to correct mistakes on the mental side. If all of a sudden you've got decided, or not even all of a sudden, if you've decided pre-snap, it's this coverage, I need to go here, and you're wrong, or someone makes a play and the ball's already left your hand, like that's when a lot of the interceptions happen in the quick game. You set hut, catch, throw, linebacker falls off, safety comes down, defensive end drops in his own blitz. Like, that's how you get turnovers in those quick game areas, and trying to avoid those things, seeing through the disguise is really important. As for how comfortable Sam Howell is with all of that stuff at this point, here was Sam after practice, asked about that quick game.
Yeah, the quick game is awesome. I love that kind of part of the offense that we have, and it makes my job easy, kind of getting the ball out of my hands fast. And we have some really good weapons on the outside, and that's a way to get the ball in their hands really fast. So that's one of my favorite parts of the offense.
And that's something he's used to. That's what they did at UNC. But I wish I knew the podcast. Greg Cosell and Doug Farrar do a podcast, and it's super nerdy and X's and O's. And I saw a clip of it on Twitter yesterday, and Farrar was talking about how the hashes and the difference of the geometry of the game makes such a difference from college to the pro. And like when you got that wide side of the field in college, you're on the right hash and you're looking left, there is so much space. It is so much more condensed with the NFL hashes being far more centered, much closer together. And so being able to have that quick game happen even quicker is going to be really important for him to adjust to that. But it is something he's used to. The RPO stuff helps with that a ton because you can move defenders fairly easily. And so his comfort level with that part of the offense is great that he's already there. And we'll see just how realistic that confidence it is starting Monday and continuing on forward into the regular season. So training camp pick 6 at 6 here on the Hoffman Show. Number 3, this is the sad part of the show, sad part of the segment. Let's get the injury updates from Ron Rivera, Logan Thomas, Fedarian Mathis, Danny Johnson. Ready, set, go.
We'll see. We're going to increase a little bit more of his work off to the side before we start engaging him in some of the group activities. But he'll continue to do what he's been doing. But he did say he's feeling better and better, and that's been a huge plus. Same thing with Fedarian. It's got to be a gradual thing. And we'll see how that goes for him as well. Chase is in the same situation I told you guys about. Again, this is all about getting past a certain point with the doctors, and then we'll go from there. But he's going to be out here. He's allowed to do everything except for contact right now. You know what? They were checking him this morning, and I haven't gotten an update on it.
So first one, Logan Thomas increasing. That's good. We'll see ultimately where that lands. Fedarian Mathis, man, it'd be really nice to get him back out there at some point soon. He's a younger guy, could use the reps. Then, with Chase, again, I don't think he's going to play against Baltimore at this point. Do you play him in that final regular season or final preseason game? Probably not. If none of the other starters are out there, you just get him to the regular season and then say, hey, saddle up, man, time to go. You obviously have a ton of practice reps between now and then, but it would have been really nice if they could have gotten him out there. Just a little bit more practice against another opponent, especially after he missed the joint practices. It'd be even better if Ronnie Staley and Morgan Moses were playing Monday night and Chase could go against them, but Baltimore's not playing their starters. So not as big of a deal for Chase to beat up on some second stringer or take any kind of risk on Monday night. As for the Danny Johnson injury, if you missed the story this morning, it was reported first by Pro Football Talk that Danny Johnson has a rotator cuff injury sustained on the play that started one of the brawls or one of the fights, one of the scuffles, whatever level of violence you want to call it, in the joint practices with Baltimore. Johnson was body slammed by Mark Andrews. It was somewhere between a body slam and a tackle, but there's no tackling in practice. 2, Danny was not anticipated being tackled. And so it wasn't like some theatrical body slam out of WWE. the contact was very real, and if he lands on his shoulder, like that can do real damage. And apparently that's some version of what happened. And let's just say Ron Rivera wasn't exactly psyched about how that all went down.
No, I'm upset with the way it happened. It's just unfortunate too, and to what extent, we don't know yet, and we won't know anything until, well, they might know something now. I just haven't had a chance to talk to Al. But, it's unfortunate that did happen at all.
Yeah, to say the least. Mark Andrews, not body slam people, then you don't have that happen. And Andrews, he's a great player, but that dude in the joint practices was had some villain energy. I'm going to put it that way. Like, had that on day one. Day two, he wound up stomping off the field, left early, didn't like whatever was happening. Just, I don't know, just big ick. Mark Andrews, the 2 days of joint practices. And I hope Danny's good. He's a valuable part of this team as a depth piece who can fill in a pinch on any, and is going to at least make, like, he might get beat, but he's going to make you earn it. And that's really, really valuable as a backup piece. He's going to be assignment disciplined and assignment sound, even if he has someone go up over him because he's not the biggest guy. But he also plays on special teams. Like, Danny Johnson's going to make this roster as long as he's healthy. And so I really hope he's healthy. He's a good dude, and would love to see him get back out there as soon as possible. As soon as possible, I guess, would be the preseason. And Ron Rivera asked today about the guys above Danny Johnson and the like on the depth chart. How much will the starters actually play in Monday night's game, knowing, by the way, that Baltimore will not be playing theirs?
No, that's a discussion we're going to have tonight. As a coaching staff, we'll talk about it to begin with, and then we'll solidify that tomorrow night.
I love how he says we'll solidify that tomorrow night because the Commanders do practice tomorrow morning, and Ron Rivera will be speaking to the press in the morning. So he will certainly be asked again, at which point he will probably say, we've had some initial discussions. Maybe we're still thinking about it. We're going to finalize that tonight. You guys will find out when we take the field on Monday. Thanks, Ron. It is what it is. Honestly, for the preseason, I actually think it would be smart for them, especially if starters are going to play. They should actually announce that for business purposes. And there's winning and losing. You'd rather win than lose, but it doesn't matter in the preseason. And so considering it as a home game, considering it as the first game of and look, this is not me. Before I get started in this, before I say what I'm about to say, Anthony, do not clip this and put it on social media. Our digital department, this is not some massive, demanding take from me. Do not make more of it than it is. But it would be smart to say you will see the starters and see if you can get a couple more fans in the stands on Monday night. It's the first game of the Josh Harris era. If the starters were going to play, you shouldn't make the decision to play them one way or another. But being secretive about it is silly because it's the preseason. And maybe it's just kind of how they're going through the process. They want to get through practice tomorrow before they decide, make sure there's not an injury, make sure there's not whatever. So I'm not even saying there isn't football reasons why they wouldn't announce this. But if they know, they should definitely leak out that the starters are playing for business reasons to get a little bit more hype around the game because that would be smart. And there's no competitive disadvantage because it's the preseason and who cares about winning and losing. Just a thought. Last but not least, in our training camp pick 6 at 6, number 6, the left guard battle. Now that we've got a starter at quarterback, hey, Ron, you ready to name a starter at left guard?
That's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. We're going to continue to evaluate that. Having Sadiq back out on the football field now, I think is going to continue that for us. But no matter who it is, the third guy is going to have an opportunity to play as well. So we just got to look at that and continue to work it and see how it goes.
Do you know what he means, Anthony, by the third guy? That's a weird quote.
Yeah, I don't know who. Tyler. Nah, I don't know.
Tyler Larson. He's played some guard. Ricky Stromberg's played some guard. Mason Brooks. I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't know what he's talking about either. I think he's just talking.
Yeah, sometimes he'd be doing that. But at the end of the day, I think that they're gonna not announce that probably till week 1. like they're going to go out there on Sunday and you're going to know who the starter is because the announcers will be like, and the offensive line looking down there, they didn't know who's going to start at left guard. It looks like it's insert Sadiq Charles or Chris Paul here, right? Like and part of that is because they are probably terrified to announce Sadiq Charles and then have him get hurt again. So if you just keep it open and like, hey, we're just going to evaluate it all the way through, you give Sadiq all the 1 reps behind the scenes, nobody knows. And then, you kind of on background tell reporters like, look, we want it to be Sadiq, but like this dude gets hurt again. We can't rely on it. So it's no freaking use in reporting it. Like that's how these games work sometimes. And if I was Ron Rivera, I would not be in a rush to announce because what I don't want is to announce Sadiq and then he gets hurt again. And now it's like, oh, we're playing our backup left guard. I would rather have the narrative be, and Chris Paul's mind up being like, oh yeah, I'm the starter. Like I won the job. So I think that one's different than quarterback. I think you just wait. And by the way, Chris Paul also, if the decision doesn't make itself with injury, Chris Paul's play might also make that decision. Chris Paul might still beat Sadiq out straight up. So I actually think that is one where you need more data and more information. And some of the things that, were a little silly about the quarterback waiting, although I, again, started the show talking about how I understand why that was the case, but there was no decision to be made. You knew it was Sam. I think in the left guard case, there's still more data to be taken in, and so they'll do that and ultimately name a starter when the time is right, which might be as they trot out there and say, hey, Sadiq, you're starting to guard today, week 1 against Arizona. That is our training camp. Pick 6 at 6 here on the Hoffman Show. We do it every single day. The Commanders practice, and that is going to be, or at least training camp practice, which means we got a couple more next week. And then we have a version of Pick 6 that we're planning in the regular season as well. So I'll tell you more about that when we get closer to. When we get back here on the radio, what are we watching on TV this weekend? Some good stuff, some interesting things, including one that I've already watched that I got to talk to Anthony about. That's next here on the Team 980.
Chris Russell on the Team 980.
I tried to warn you, bro. It is a mess in downtown Nashville every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Not even
we moved hotels the next night. I still am waiting on my refund for that. But yeah, we moved hotels the second night.
Wow.
It was fun. You say they rely on them. We went to brunch with my buddy the next day, who is a Nashville native and has lived in Nashville long enough that he remembers when it was more than just the bachelorette capital of the world. And he's like, yeah, we're pretty much on the woo girl economy.
Yeah, that's precisely what's going on. The downtown businesses cater to that. If you try to get it shut down, you're probably the one getting thrown out. It is what it is right now. It's weird, but Nashville, baby. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So I will add one more small part to this story, and this is the part, frankly, that I've been waiting to tell you all week as well. That was kind of part one. We got quality Yates reaction. Part two, as we leave the hotel the next morning to go to breakfast. Remember, the wall's very thin. So it's not going where you think it's going. But as we walk down the hallway, my dear sweet wife just starts saying in a slightly elevated volume of voice, it's been proven that the later groups stay out and make noise and all this stuff at their bachelorette weekend, the higher the divorce rate.
Oh God!
In the wedding,
so
and also the better
trash,
chances,
basically.
and also the better chances.
Wow. Okay. Okie dokie. So Rachel was pissed, basically.
Yeah, she doesn't have a lot of tolerance for the woo girls. They say on the internet, like, feel free to post stuff, like your friends' photos, do whatever. But like whatever you do for your own well-being.
don't read the comments. Comment section, bad idea. What do we do?
We read those comments, baby.
That is exactly what we do. That was a little bit better. I still feel like that one was a little muted. I think sometimes it feels like you build yourself up a little too much, and then sometimes you don't
I ain't
quite
want to go
for it.
screaming all the way. The thing is, though, my mic is a little lower than yours, so maybe I could have actually, did what I really.
Mike also moves. You can go, ooh. Did you know you could play tricks with a microphone?
I think I'll try that next time.
Okay. You want to give it another shot?
We read those comments, baby.
There we go. All right. I feel ready now. We're not miserable. No, not in the business of misery right now, Anthony. We only got half an hour left in the show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well. Own the free Odyssey app. Also live on YouTube at the Team 980. I keep teasing it, and I will keep teasing it. There's big streaming news coming soon. We already got the new graphics. Pretty pumped about it. Got the DC skyline and the whole deal. But you're going to be able to watch us in more places soon. And I'm excited about that. When we have the details figured out, we will let you know and do that. All right, Anthony, I'm going to put you on the spot. I asked you a question off air, and I'm going to ask you on air before we get to what we're watching on this weekend. What should we have for dinner? Yeah, you said you'd have a solution for me at the end of pick 6.
I did.
And do you have anything for me? Or you?
I do.
Not helpful?
I have a place.
Oh,
in mind.
Okay.
Have you ever had El Rey tacos?
Ever had El? I don't think so. El Rey.
It's on U Street. It's not that far from your crib.
Yeah, we're not going to say where I live on the radio. But,
sorry.
In the DC neighborhood, sure.
Yes.
This looks good. Looks appetizing. I wonder if
and
they
if
deliver.
you don't like tacos from there, Alamo's another good spot.
Okay. I think we're just going to keep looking. Thank you.
Oh, you didn't like my suggestion?
No, they're not bad. They're not bad. I don't know why I asked you on the air. That was rude.
What about Subway?
No, I don't think we're gonna eat fresh.
You can eat. I was just about to say that. What about Burger King? You can have it your way.
No, I think we're gonna keep hunting. But I appreciate your input. Thanks.
Arby's, they have the meats.
That's.
I'm just giving you options, Craig. Just giving you options, man.
Like, what other fast food slogans?
McDonald's, you'd be loving it.
That's true.
You would.
What's Taco Bell's slogan?
I was just thinking about that. I don't know Taco Bell.
It's like they were on the fourth meal thing for a while, and it's hard to make a joke out of. I just like I feel like now it's just like the bell. Like if we were to do Taco Bell, someone would just like appear out of nowhere. Like Jeff Walker would appear out of nowhere behind you and hit you with a fake mallet, and we'd have a cartoon sound effect of the dong.
What else? Oh, there's Wendy's.
What's Wendy's thing?
I don't think they have one, to be honest.
It's just like, hey, we're Wendy's. Nice to meet you.
I don't think they have one. Quality is our recipe.
Oh.
I don't know.
They definitely don't say it on the commercials.
Nah, they don't. Unless you want to go with Flow and Progressive.
I don't think that's a dinner spot.
It's not.
But you can compare prices with the compare your price tool. Allstate, we're chaos.
How did we get here, man?
I asked you what we should have for dinner. We wound up saying insurance slogans.
Yeah.
All right. This weekend on television, some interesting stuff. First of all, you have got some catching up to do because Hard Knocks was fascinating this week.
Ooh. When does Hard Knocks come out? Does it come out on
Tuesday nights? Tuesday nights at 10. So we typically watch it on Wednesdays.
I definitely missed it. Yep. I will watch it. I'm not going to promise tonight, but possibly tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we don't have a show tomorrow, so, you know.
Yeah, I think I'll be watching it
by Monday.
tomorrow.
But the main thing, no like true spoilers here because you'll have to see it. But like, there's a mentalist that they bring in. You know what a mentalist is? It's like a magician who does certain tricks and like kind of they claim that they can like read your mind.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, hey, pick think of any card. And it's like, this card, and they pick it out of the deck. Like, it's crazy. And he absolutely like blows the mind of the Jets players. And frankly, me. And
and you.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there on my couch going, how does he like I know it's all sleight of hand. I know there's like secrets. There's ways to do it, but
really?
like I cannot figure out how he did some of the stuff that he did.
It's magic, man.
Yeah, but like some magic tricks are easy to figure out. Others are, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I want to go back and watch it again.
See if you can, catch it.
See if I can suss it out.
All you got to do is slow it down, rewind it, put it in 0.01 fast forward motion.
Just watch it frame by frame.
Yeah, I think you'll get to it. You'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. I'm also wondering, I mean, the camera work probably, like, does HBO help him out a little bit? Like, it doesn't help in the room. But, like, in the room, there's no replays. In the room, like, you experience it as it is. You can't rewind. So unless you happen to be looking in the right place to see the sleight of hand, I don't know, man. It's nuts. Some of the stuff that he did. But yeah, you got that plus more. You got joint practices down in Carolina. It was a good episode. So that's on your table this weekend. The World Cup final is Sunday. Definitely pumped for that. Are you going to get up at 6 a.m. and watch it?
I will be up possibly. So I'm supposed to go to New York tomorrow. I'm supposed to leave at 6 a.m. and then Sunday return at 6 a.m. So I think I will be up.
Oh, so you're going to try to maybe watch it on the train or something. Or how you getting to and from? You driving?
DJ's going to be driving. My
so
friend,
you could watch.
Yes, I actually could watch. Yeah, I'm going to try to stay up, give him some moral support.
Yeah.
At 6 a.m. bright and early.
Why are y'all going to New York? And why are y'all leaving so damn early?
My friend is having her annual pool party.
Oh.
So we're being good friends and driving all the way to Long Island. Not to New York City.
Bro.
To Long Island.
That's where all my family is from. And let me tell you, you have to drive through New York City to get to Long Island.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, if she's on the South Shore, you might be able to kind of skate a little bit around it, but like you're You're basically driving through New York City, like on a highway.
Yeah.
But the highways are jammed at all hours of the day.
Yeah.
Just be prepared. There's going to be a point where you are 5 miles from your destinations, and
it's
you'll
gonna
be
take
in
us
New Jersey.
50 minutes.
Oh, if you're lucky.
Oh, man.
You'll be like, why is it an hour and a half to go 5 miles?
Yeah.
And to go from New Jersey into the city out to Long Island. Also depends on where you're going. Where on the island are you going?
Couldn't even tell you.
Okay.
I just know it's Long Island, and it's very far.
Because if you're on the far side of Long Island, like just getting through the city, like you still could have a long way to go.
Yeah, I have a friend that lives in Brooklyn. He said it takes him 2 hours to commute. Like if he was to take the train. I'm just like, bro.
Well, yeah,
that
the train.
is insane.
But I will say, like, the play if you're going to New York is, especially if you know ahead of time, is to book the Amtrak train way out in advance. Because they have really cheap, like if you're going to New York 6 months from now, you could probably get the Acela, like the express train, the really nice one, for like $39.
Oh my god!
You try to do it the day before, it's going to be $650.
Yeah, I'd rather not do that.
Yeah, so them's be the breaks. Like sometimes it is literally cheaper to do the train because of all the tolls you pay, not to mention the gas and the time. So that's the play. Speaking of plays, back to the TV watching. I am so pumped for the latest Untold. Did you watch the Manziel one yet, by the way?
I have not. And everybody keeps telling me it's really good.
It's really good. It's really good. I enjoyed it. I think they did a good job. It's a nice, tight documentary. Like there's not a lot of like some of these documentaries that are like 4-part series should have been one. And you're just like, why are you rehashing the same point 78 times to make this into a 4-hour series? Just make it an hour and a half doc and your thing would be better. Anyway, mini rant over. The Untold series has been very, very good. This is the crew that did The Malice at the Palace. This is the crew that did the Manziel doc. And there's the Manti Te'o doc was all in this Untold series. And their latest one, which is out now that we've got tabled for this weekend, is on the Balco lab. Now, we were talking before the show. You actually, that's a reference lost on you. This is where our age difference matters. You are just slightly too young to remember this.
Yes, very much so.
So Balco was the lab that did all the steroid stuff with, like, Barry Bonds. But it turns out Barry Bonds was just on the surface. Like, Marion Jones. Do you know who Marion Jones is?
No.
So Marion Jones was, like, the best sprinter in the world. Won gold medals and eventually got them stripped. Spoiler alert. For something that happened 25 years ago. But she got them stripped because she got caught doping. And, like, Balco was the lab behind all of it. And there was, like, people who went to prison on the side. Like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happened with this. I am super pumped to watch this because if you are my age in your early 30s or older, you remember, like, this being the biggest story in sports and, you know, baseball players going to Capitol Hill to testify and, like, you know, Marion Jones getting stripped and USADA and the WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, coming down on these athletes and, you know, FBI raids. And it was nuts, man. So I'm very, very excited to dive into this documentary because it was one of the biggest stories of kind of my sports. My sports childhood. I would have been like, you know, if this is happening in between 2000 and 2015, it was like by the time I was 10 and 15 years old. So it's like middle school for me. So I'm really pumped to dive into that. Anything else on the radar for you this weekend? Sounds like you'll be kind of busy. But
yeah.
Anything else on TV? Anything else in the wild that the people should know about?
I might watch some of the games. I'm going to watch some type of preseason football.
Yeah.
Just throw it on, you know. Maybe
good background noise.
Background noise, yep.
And then, of course, Monday we got Commanders-Ravens, so we'll be previewing that all show.
Yes, sir.
Also, there was a big story that broke a little bit earlier this afternoon. Mega issues potentially with the Northwest Little League here in D.C. So local sports story. This is the team that lost in the Little League World Series, but there's apparently a ton of like behind the scenes stuff. I know Clinton's all over it because you remember how when he came on the show last week, like he was super crushed about that team losing, and then turns out there was a lot deeper issues. and the Post just published a story today. So I think we're going to squeeze a bonus segment with Yates in on Monday on that, and otherwise we'll be pretty much straight preview of Commanders-Ravens. That night, we'll see what Rivera says over the weekend as they practice tomorrow about the starters, and look forward to that on Monday. But there's one order of business that still needs to be done before we get out of here. Real Things, Real People Said, Into Real Microphones is next here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
By the way, did you ever find your headphones?
Yes, I did find them actually.
Who do you think hid them? Who do we need to fight?
What were you saying?
I said now that you've got your headphones on. Who do we need to fight? Who do we think hid them? Where were they?
So Jeff Walker definitely came into the studio and took my headphones.
If you had given me one guess, 100% Jeff Walker.
Yep.
100%. All right, Jeff Walker. You come in, sometimes you just barge in, you're like, hey, I'm here. And I'm like, cool, like, what are you doing here? Which is fine. Jeff's a delight. But can you please leave my guy's headphones alone? He's a professional radio producer. He's got things to do.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My favorite story is, I think we were playing Cincinnati. Was it Cincinnati?
That's not depends on the story, but maybe we were playing Cincinnati.
So Logan catches this touchdown.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was Cincinnati. Yep.
It was Cincinnati. So we put in this play, and it was like, I think we called it Hoss Juke or something like that. I can't remember what we called it in that offense, but Logan's on a seam, right? So he's our vertical threat, taking the top off the defense.
Digging out, guys.
We're talking in the week. I don't think we ever said it in the install with those guys, but they're like, listen, Logan's not even in the progression. He's taking the top off this thing. We're trying to work this little option route down. And they bust this coverage. And I mean, he is screaming wide open.
I wasn't even supposed to be on the play. They were supposed to sub somebody else in because I thought I was too slow to run this route. Just for the context here for everybody.
So he's screaming wide open. And I'm like, Matt, throw it at his back shoulder. You might hit him in stride. If you try and back shoulder him. Threw it right at him. He catches it. It was an awesome touchdown. Just the celebration afterwards was so much fun. For me, it was always fun celebrating the touchdowns with the guys that didn't score them all the time. You know? Like,
take that, Julio Jones.
Yeah. And I'm not, I'm saying that, but like, your role for us was you did the dirty work. And when you see guys that do the dirty work get rewarded for it, that was really cool. Something I'll never forget. The caveman. Yeah. The caveman was in there in the end zone celebrating. It was awesome.
the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It is Friday. It is the last segment of the week, which means we get the Rebecca Black treatment. And Anthony's very, very happy. You do anything
Every
tonight?
time.
You just going to bed early because you got to get up dumb early to go to this pool party.
I don't know if I'm going to bed early, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. You and I value sleep differently.
I do value sleep, Craig.
Sometimes.
Oh, man. Yeah.
All right, Monday on the show, we're hoping to have a member of the ESPN broadcast team. The good folks at ESPN PR are trying to schedule that. So hopefully we'll have either Buck, Aikman, Lisa Salter, somebody on the show, which would be pretty cool ahead of the game. We will also be going to 7:30, so make sure that you are ready for that. However you want to watch or listen to the show, Odyssey app, obviously your car radio, wherever you're headed. You get 30 minutes of bonus coverage all the way up till kickoff. Or if you want to if you're getting home to watch the game and you want some extra pregame coverage, just flip us on your smart TV, youtube.com/@theteam980. Subscribe, the smart TV app, just subscribe or search the Team 980 on YouTube. Flip us on and we'll be your pregame show, and then flip over to however it is that you're going to watch the game and watch the game. Pretty simple. Other than that, Anthony, I'll be on with Linnell on Sunday. Looking forward to that. 10:25 a.m. on Sunday. I think that's kind of all the housekeeping. Anything else that you got?
I don't think so.
Good week next week for us, by the way. Like, nice compressed schedule. Because on Tuesday, we'll do all the game recap, including a new roster projection.
Yes,
Wednesday practice, I'll be there. Thursday practice, I'll be there. Or do they practice Tuesday, Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, I think that makes a little more sense.
Because the game's Friday. Or is the game Saturday? The game's Saturday. Saturday, yeah. So it's Wednesday, Thursday practice. Friday we'll be getting ready for a game, and then Saturday they play. And then, holy cow, the regular season is basically here. So that's...
we got to wait that long week.
Yeah, it's that bonus because there's an off week in between. I guess that's all leading up to cuts, and they have 2 weeks of practice. There's like a bye week almost before week one.
Mm-hmm.
Don't like it. All right. That's what we look like until this time next week. So we should probably finish this show before we get to those. It's time for Real Things.
Real things.
We're not going to suck this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All righty. You think you can play quarterback in the NFL? Try spitting out a play, nevertheless executing it. A thing that was reminded to all of us by Tua Tagovailoa at the podium in Miami. He had a little challenge for reporters.
I can give you guys a play, and then if you guys want to repeat it after me, as if you guys were in the huddle, you guys can. All right. Should I go once or twice saying it? Once? All right. We got North Right Clamp, South Fox, H-Top, Pass 38, Top Gumby, XP Sweat. Let's go. Anyone?
I got North Right on Clamp. I got Sounds like a false start.
Yeah, sounds like a pre-snap penalty to me. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my goodness.
Anthony, you think you can do it?
Hold on. I need to hear it one more time.
All right.
So hold on. Here we go.
I'm going to also listen.
All right.
I'm going to try to do it.
All right. We got North Right Clamp, South Fox, H-Top, Pass 38, Top Gumby, XP Sweat. Let's go.
North Right Fox, halfback, pass, 32. Let's go.
All right. I think I got it.
All right.
You ready?
Yep.
North Right Clamp, South Fox, H-Top Pass, 38, Top Gumby, XP Sweat.
Come on. How many times have you listened to this, Craig?
Come on.
How many times have you listened to this?
Run it back.
All right. We got North Right Clamp, South.
North Right Clamp, South Fox, H-Top Pass, 38, Top Gumby, XP Sweat.
All right. We got North Right Clamp, South Fox, H-Top Pass 38, Top Gumby, XP Sweat. Let's go.
Yo. I'm on to you, Craig. That was good. That was all right.
Because I definitely listened to it like 10 times and wrote it down.
I I was about to say, what?
I saw that
is
before the show, and
crazy.
I'm like, I got to write this down because I'm going to get Anthony so bad.
Wow. Yeah, you had me for a second. I was like,
I was like, I got to keep a straight face because I think I can convince him for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
You were on to me too fast. I was like, but he's
I
also
was.
gullible.
Now, the thing is, I was about to ask you, all right, repeat my play. I was going to come up with a play.
Oh, okay. Go ahead with your play. You probably can't even come up with one. You got flag football plays or something?
Nah, not really.
How do you guys call plays for flag?
We'll just say they're like one word plays. So we'll be like whack. And
Whack.
I
Got
don't know
it.
what I'm doing. Yep, pretty much.
What's your role on whack?
If I line up, usually I line up in the slot and I run a seam, and I'm usually the hot route. The outside man runs a curl, and yeah.
So north right clamp, south fox H is going to be a tight end to the whichever side they designate north, probably the right. South fox H means that's going to be an alignment thing for your H back. So I'm guessing that's a play with a fullback to the left. So tight end right, H back left. Pass 38, top Gumby XP sweat. No idea what that means.
Yeah.
I'm going to say top pass, it might be a play action. And then maybe there's a canned top. Gumby is going to be a route concept. XP sweat. Probably some kind of hot call.
XP sweat.
I don't know. North right clamp, south fox H top pass, 38 top Gumby XP sweat. On 2, ready break.
On 2, good gracious, that's pressure.
You remember the snap count?
Yes, sir.
What's the snap count?
2.
Hut. Let's go. All right, that's our show. See you Monday on the Team 980.
Hey, I'm Craig Hoffman.
And I'm Logan Paulson.
And together we host the
You have